Chapter 2742. Lord Night Sorrow, get out of the way. The leader of the 13 Eagles of Cloud Ridge reminded him. The others were in a similar state. None of them understood why Night Sorrow had suddenly stopped moving. He hadn't reacted to the explosion at all. Wuxia even wanted to rely on his own explosion to block Night Sorrow's attack, but he was too far away and couldn't make it in time. At this point, Tianyun Bao's light had completely vanished. Haha. Steward, what are you waiting for? Didn't you tell me to explode my divine artifact so that you could find an opportunity like this? Now that he's not moving at all, why don't you use the talisman made by the Dark Moon Ruler? Seeing Night Sorrow not moving, the Divine King of North Ning hurriedly shouted at the steward. Why do I feel like there's something fishy going on? The steward of the Dark Moon Ruler was a little hesitant. He didn't think Night Sorrow was a rash person. What's fishy? Blast him to pieces and end everything. Only by killing Night Sorrow can we save the rest of the high gods. Hurry up! The Divine King of North Ning urged. The way he saw it, if he delayed dealing with Night Sorrow, hundreds or even thousands of his high gods would die. Forget it. Let's do it. The steward, who had originally wanted to wait and see, snorted coldly. As long as we deal with him, there won't be any problems. As he spoke, he took out the powerful talisman the Dark Moon Ruler had given him and threw it at Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow! Hurry up and dodge! Everyone from the immortal domain shouted anxiously at the sight before them. Haha! Dodge! It's too late! Night Sorrow is dead for sure. Seeing the talisman the Dark Moon Ruler had made fly to Night Sorrow's side, the steward laughed heartily. As long as we kill everyone here, T&I won't know. Gem and T&I wouldn't know. Let's work together to get rid of Night Sorrow. The Divine King of Bei Ning smiled coldly and said, I will immediately activate the formation and seal the space. Do not let anyone escape. How could Gem and T&I not know? If he didn't even know what was happening right under his nose, he wouldn't be the #1 expert in the God realm. Hearing Binaring's Divine King's words, the butler smiled. His mission was to help the Dark Moon Ruler kill Night Sorrow and capture Tianyun Bao. As for the Divine King of Baining, he didn't care at all. What's going on? The butler, who had been mocking Binaring's Divine King in his heart, suddenly noticed that the talisman he had activated did not explode when it approached Night Sorrow. He immediately looked over nervously. Seeing this, the butler's expression immediately changed. At this moment, Yi Shang had already opened his eyes. He controlled the heavenly cloud bow to suppress the talisman flying towards him. After the talisman was suppressed, a smile appeared on Night Sorrow's face. Then he tossed it towards the butler. This talisman was personally made by the Dark Moon Ruler. Seeing the talisman flying towards him, he immediately used his movement technique to dodge. You want to run? Didn't you want to use this talisman to kill me? Now, have a taste of its power. Yi Shan, who had recovered, immediately used the virtuous dragon-locking formation on the housekeeper when he saw that the housekeeper was trying to dodge. Being bound by the virtuous dragon-locking formation, the butler, who had originally wanted to dodge, immediately panicked. By the time he reacted and began to break the formation, the talisman had already exploded in the sealed space. Wang! After a muffled explosion, the already injured housekeeper was left with only half a life from the explosion of the divine talisman. Yi Shang seized the opportunity and drew his bow. He used the heavenly cloud arrow to pierce through his dantian. Then he crushed his spirit sea. Not good. If I, the Divine King, don't run, I will definitely die. Seeing that the butler was instantly killed by Night Sorrow, the Divine King of North Ning immediately panicked. He activated a secret technique to raise his strength to the maximum and used his movement technique to escape. Seeing that he was escaping, Night Sorrow immediately grabbed 5 heavenly cloud arrows. He shouted, Heavenly Cloud 5 elemental arrows. Then, he shot the 5 heavenly cloud arrows together. The 5 heavenly cloud arrows transformed into the energy of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth and shot towards the Divine King of North Ning. Not good. This is the origin power of a sovereign. Tianyun Bao has indeed been completely activated. The Divine King of North Ning, who was escaping, felt the energy of the 5 heavenly cloud arrows behind him and was immediately scared out of his wits. At this moment, he looked at a corner of the void and shouted, Lord Dark Moon Ruler, save me! North Ning swears to be loyal to you. Steal from Lord Tianai? I don't dare to do such a thing. You can go in peace. The Dark Moon ruler, who was hidden in the void, snorted coldly. When the butler died, he didn't even save him, let alone the divine king of North Ning. I, North Ning, am working for you, but you don't save me. The divine king of North Ning was disheartened by the Dark Moon ruler's cold rejection. At this moment, the 5 heavenly cloud arrows bombarded his body one after another, causing him to lose the ability to fight. Night Sorrow immediately rose into the air and chased after him to kill him. Then he looked at the void and said, Lord Dark Moon, next time send a stronger divine king. Humph. The divine king of Dark Moon in the void snorted coldly after losing the butler and 120,000 high gods. He didn't say anything and chose to leave immediately. After the Dark Moon ruler left, Night Sorrow looked at the divine lords and high gods who were still fighting and said, Everyone, stop. Yes. After Night Sorrow spoke, everyone from the immortal dominion stopped. The divine lords who followed the divine king of North Ning and the butler knew that the 2 divine kings on their side had been killed, so they didn't dare to make a move. Almost all of them were in a state of submission. At the same time, Night Sorrow spoke and unfroze all the frozen high gods. After the remaining high gods recovered, they looked around blankly, not understanding what had just happened. Looking at them, Night Sorrow said, I am Night Sorrow. The divine king of North Ning and the butler have both been killed. This is something you need to know. Also, you need to make a choice. Join the immortal dominion, or return to the dominion of Tian Yi or the Dark Moon dominion. The 2 divine kings really died in battle? Some of the high gods asked incredulously. They have indeed been killed by Domain Lord Night Sorrow. A divine lord under the divine king of North Ning sighed helplessly. That's true. Upon hearing this, all the high gods present looked at Yi Shang in astonishment. Night Sorrow hovered in the void with the Tianyun bow in his hand. To them, he was as dazzling as the sun in the sky. What do we do? Where should we go? Chapter 2743. The steward subordinates were glad that Night Sorrow didn't kill them and gave them a choice. They were worried that Night Sorrow would kill them if they chose to return to the Dark Moon Dominion. After all, they had sworn an oath to serve the Dark Moon Dominion for life. Divine King Bei Ning's subordinates didn't hesitate. They all bowed to Night Sorrow and said, We are willing to serve the immortal dominion. In fact, they had no other choice. Every one of them had sworn an oath to the Divine King Bei Ning. Now that the Divine King Bei Ning was dead, the oath was automatically lifted. Moreover, they had betrayed the Dark Moon Dominion and weren't part of the Dark Moon Dominion. Their only choice was to join the Immortal Dominion. It's your fortune to choose to join the Immortal Dominion. Night Sorrow looked at the former subordinates of the Divine King Bei Ning and said, Originally, the Immortal Dominion didn't want to accept people so casually. But now, it seems that managing such a large dominion requires a lot of manpower. But there is one thing I must say first. I, Night Sorrow, have proven my Tao through virtue. If you join the Immortal Dominion, you must change some of your bad habits. Yes. Night Sorrow Dominion. The people who had pledged allegiance to Divine Monarch Northern Condensation immediately bowed towards Yi Shang. To them, it didn't matter who they followed. As for the steward subordinates, they were the Dark Moon Dominion subordinates. When they saw that the Divine King Bei Ning subordinates had submitted, they immediately lost their minds. Yi Shang, who was looking at them, said, You can leave. But before you leave, you must swear that you will never do anything to harm the Immortal Dominion. Yes. Night Sorrow Dominion. They were obviously hesitant when they were spared by Night Sorrow. They didn't expect Night Sorrow to speak before they had made a choice. However, since they had been spared and Night Sorrow was a merit divine lord, they naturally knew that he would not go back on his word. They immediately rushed towards the Dark Moon Dominator's territory. Night Sorrow led the remaining people to the Divine King's residence in North Ning to take over everything there. After taking over the Divine King's residence, Night Sorrow thought for a moment and said to Jin Ye, Brother Jin Ye, the immortal realm lacks a divine king like you. Why don't you stay here? Am I not supposed to stay here and fight alongside Brother Night Sorrow? Jin Ye asked doubtfully when he heard Night Sorrow's words. Once the matter at hand is settled, I will bring my wife and Auntie Faye to the Phoenix Ancestral Grounds to search for opportunities for them. Night Sorrow explained, If you come with us, No one in the immortal domain will be able to suppress you. He didn't want Jin Ye to fend off the invasion of other powers, but to stabilize the immortal domain. After he finished speaking, Jin Ye nodded and said, "That's good. Then I will look after the immortal realm for Brother Knight's sorrow. Don't worry, the immortal domain will not fall into chaos before you return." "Thank you, Brother Jin Ye." Knight's sorrow cupped his fists and thanked him. "We have gone through fire and water together. No need to be so polite. It just so happens that I, your elder brother, am preparing to calm down and cultivate properly. After leaving the ancient Golden Crow realm, I have been at a disadvantage in every battle. This has made me very angry." Jin Ye sighed and then asked in confusion, "Oh right. Brother Knight's sorrow, why were you in a daze during the battle just now?" "Oh, that matter. At that time, I activated Tianyun Bao and comprehended an ultimate technique within it. It is called the Heavenly Cloud 5 Elemental Arrow." Knight's sorrow explained his state at the time. He had been completely immersed in comprehending the technique, and Tianyun Bao's energy had successfully protected him from harm. After he woke up, it had helped to suppress the divine talisman thrown by the butler. "So that's how it is. Brother Knight's sorrow is indeed not an ordinary person." Jin Ye praised with a smile and said, "Brother Knight's sorrow, aren't you worried about the materials to activate the Heaven and Earth Great Formation? Why don't we take a look at Bei Ning and the butler's spatial artifacts, as well as the Divine King's treasury?" "I was thinking the same thing." Yi Shang nodded. Together with Jin Ye and the others, they went to the treasury of Northern Condensation's Divine King Manor to search for useful materials. The others could take any ordinary materials and resources, but Knight's sorrow only took those that were useful for activating the Heaven and Earth Great Formation. After searching through the spatial artifacts of Bei Ning and the steward, as well as the treasury of Bei Ning's Divine King Palace, there were only 3 materials left for Knight's sorrow. One was called Heaven's Eye Stone, one was called Sycamore Grass, and the last was Void Beast Bone. "Brother Jin Ye, please keep an eye out for these 3 materials. After this, I should go back to the Domain Chief's mansion to discuss the next step. As for the other areas, you can patrol for me." Knight's sorrow felt that no one in the immortal divine realm could pose a threat to Jin Ye now that Bei Ning and the Divine King had been killed. Therefore, he trusted Jin Ye. Xian Jizi was asked to stay by Jin Ye's side to assist him. Sometimes, Jin Ye was not very smart, while Xian Jizi was a little weak, but he was smart enough. With the 2 of them working together, Knight's sorrow could rest assured. After bidding farewell to them, Knight's sorrow returned to the Domain Chief's mansion with Mo Yuqian and the others. On the way, he promised to go to the 9th Heaven Mystery Land after he returned from the Phoenix Ancestral Land to find the formula for the Heavenly Phoenix ever-changing elixir for them and try to save them as soon as possible. At the same time, he gave Mo Yuqian and the other Divine Emperors, who had been refined into puppets, the improved secret skill of the 33 Heaven Star Souls, hoping that they could strengthen their divine souls by themselves. When they arrived at the Domain Chief's mansion, Knight's sorrow immediately went to look for Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei. When he saw the 2 of them, Knight's sorrow said, "Auntie Fei, Jing Yun, you should get ready. We will go to the Phoenix Ancestral Land immediately to find the opportunity that belongs to you." Knight's sorrow, "I'm afraid it's not a good time to go now." Wu Lingfei looked troubled when she heard Knight's sorrow's words. "Auntie Fei, what's wrong with you? You still haven't recovered from that incident?" Yi Shang immediately asked worriedly. "Not really. It's just that I have a feeling that I'm going to become a divine emperor," Wu Lingfei explained. "That's good news. Auntie Fei, what resources do you need?" Knight's sorrow asked happily. Wu Lingfei shook her head and said, "I don't need any resources. I just need the space of the Clear Sky Pagoda." "Good. We'll wait for you to become a divine emperor before we go together. It's not a big deal." Knight's sorrow nodded and summoned Wu Lingfei into the Clear Sky Pagoda. He said, "Auntie Fei, how long do you think it will take for you to become a divine emperor? If it's too long, I'll go to the 9th Heaven Mystery Land to find the formula for the Heavenly Phoenix ever-changing elixir for Brother Mo Yuqian and the others." "I'm not sure. It could be an instant, or it could be tens of thousands of years," Wu Lingfei replied with uncertainty. Chapter 2744. All right. I'll start my seclusion now. I won't come out until I break through. As Wu Lingfei spoke, she prepared to enter seclusion. She wouldn't come out until she became a divine lord. Night Sorrow took out some cultivation resources and handed them to her. Aunt Fei, I've moved the King Divine Pulse in the Clear Sky Pagoda to the Domain Master's mansion. You can use these resources. Hee, all right. I won't stand on ceremony with you. Wu Lingfei took the resources from Night Sorrow and walked into a stone room to begin her seclusion. Aunt Fei is my family. You don't have to stand on ceremony. Night Sorrow replied and left the Clear Sky Pagoda to return to the Domain Master's mansion. Sikong Chuyu saw Night Sorrow and immediately asked, Husband, how is Aunt Fei? When will she break through to the Divine Lord level? Aunt Fei needs an epiphany. It's not easy to tell the time. Night Sorrow answered honestly. Husband, what are you going to do next? Rest quietly for a while? Sikong Chuyu continued. It's impossible for me to rest. I'm going to gather the materials to set up the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array. We only lack 3 materials. One is called the Heaven's Eye Stone, the other is called the Parasol Treegrass, and the last is the Void Beast Bone. Once we gather these materials and activate the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array, even Dominator Tianai won't be able to find the habitat of the Night Moon Empire. Night Sorrow replied. The safety of his people was the most important thing to him. After all, after he broke through to the Divine King level, he might be able to cultivate an avatar and go to the Eternal Supreme Domain. Husband, how are we going to find them? Is there anything we can do to help? Lin Piaomiao asked. When she was in the celestial realm, her presence was very strong. However, when she was in the divine world, she was limited by her strength and had no chance to help. She was very anxious. If Aunt Fei breaks through to the Divine Lord level, we will go to the Phoenix Ancestral Land together. Therefore we can't be too far away. I'm going to make an announcement in the Immortal Dominion to exchange for clues about these 3 items. Night Sorrow said. The chances of finding a needle in a haystack with the help of the Night Moon Empire was very slim. He was going to mobilize all the cultivators in the Immortal Dominion to search. This method. When Lin Piaomiao heard this, she sighed and said, I keep feeling that after reaching the Divine Realm, we seem to have become cripples. I'm a little reluctant. I feel the same way. Datura said. When he heard this, Yi Shang smiled and said, We just arrived at the Divine Dimension not long ago, and we haven't accumulated sufficient strength yet. As time passes, everyone will have plenty of opportunities. But, husband, you've grown so strong. Every time you fight, you have to face God Kings or even sovereigns. We can't help and are very anxious in our hearts. Lin Piaomiao said unwillingly. In the end, it's because my husband's strength has increased too quickly. We can't keep up with his pace, so we're feeling anxious. Yang Lei replied. She was already used to not being able to keep up with Night Sorrow's cultivation. She didn't feel the same way as Lin Piaomiao and Datura. Night Sorrow felt that it made sense. He thought for a while and said, Actually, every part of a family is important. The reason why my strength has increased so quickly is inseparable from the support you guys have given me. It's because of you that Night Sorrow is here today. If you say so, we have nothing to refute. Hee. Aoi smiled and poured a cup of hot tea for Night Sorrow. Let's not talk about the battles anymore. Little 13 has been fighting almost every day. Now that he's back at home, let's let him relax. Relax? Sure. Yang Lei smiled. Aoi said. The others laughed as well. Jing Yun asked curiously, Sisters, what are you laughing about? How can we help our husband relax? How? Of course, we'll help him loosen his bones and massage his legs. While we're at it, we'll play some interesting games. Yang Lei said. Although Jing Yun was the oldest among them, she had experienced the least amount of battles. After marrying Night Sorrow, she didn't get intimate with him much. She didn't understand the girl's secret code. Yi Shang chuckled when he heard what they said. Recently, he had indeed been fighting all the time. He just wanted to relax. To him, family was the best shelter. Returning to his family made him feel relaxed. You guys are really... After Jing Yun heard Yang Lei's words, she immediately replied shyly. Yang Lei smiled. Jing Yun, we all have children. You're the only one who doesn't. You have to work hard tonight. Jingyun didn't know how to refute. She just shut up. However, even if she shut up now, the girls still didn't let her off at night. They kept forcing her and Night Sorrow to do the most primitive exercises. In the end, even Night Sorrow felt embarrassed. He pulled the girls over and educated them one by one. He gave them a very vivid experience. After it ended, Night Sorrow had a good night's sleep. When he woke up, he felt that his body and mind had completely recovered from the days of fighting. When he woke up, Night Sorrow found his wives lying lazily on the bed. He got up and went outside to repair Tianyun Bao and the Sky Cloud Arrow. He had been through too many battles and Tianyun Bao had been activated once. This had caused him to wear and tear. Night Sorrow used up all the Sovereign Stones on him to completely repair Tianyun Bao and the 9 Sky Cloud Arrows. After everything was repaired, Night Sorrow found Ho Lai, Zhu Yunxia, and Geng Chen. He told them about the matter of finding the 3 materials and asked them to give instructions to their subordinates. The 3 of them had recently reached the peak of the High God Realm and could break through to the Monarch God Realm at any time. They had encountered a bottleneck in their cultivation and had nothing to do, so they immediately went to handle this matter. Night Sorrow entered the Clear Sky Pagoda and cultivated in peace. To him, cultivating step by step wasn't very helpful in increasing his strength, but it was very good for calming his mind. After cultivating in the Clear Sky Pagoda for 100 years, Night Sorrow once again consolidated his High God Realm. After completely forging his foundation into a perfect state, Night Sorrow began to ponder a new spear art. In recent battles, the Forbidden Reincarnation Spear's effects weren't very good. He prepared to research a more powerful spear art. After a long period of pondering and research, as well as Lin Piaomiao and Jing Yun's guidance, combined with Tianyun Bao's state, Night Sorrow finally comprehended a new spear art. Heavenly Cloud Reincarnation Spear. The name was very simple, and the spear art wasn't very flashy. However, when the Heavenly Reincarnation Spear was used, it would borrow some of Tianyun Bao's sovereign realm strength. Its power was very terrifying. It was clearly more powerful than an ordinary Divine King's attack. However, the prerequisite was that Tianyun Bao was present. Chapter 2745. Is there good news? When Ho Lai and the other 2 arrived, their faces were filled with joy. Night Sorrow immediately deduced. Haha, you guessed right. We received news that a void beast has appeared in the silent ocean of our immortal dominion. Don't we need its bones? We can go hunt it. Geng Chen said with a smile. The 3 of them did not expect the news to come so easily. They did not even have to ask and they already received useful information. Hearing this, Yi Shang nodded with a smile and said, "It really is good news. Let's move out immediately." No rush. We have already asked. The Silent Ocean is a very special place. Everyone needs to make some preparations. Zhu Yunxia immediately explained. You can't fly in the Silent Ocean. You can only rely on ships to travel there. So we need to prepare a few extremely sturdy ships. What kind of ships do we need? Night Sorrow asked. We need at least a king grade one. Otherwise, it won't be able to withstand the baptism of the waves. Zhu Yunxia told Night Sorrow about the situation. A king grade ship is really not easy to build. A king grade ship made Night Sorrow feel a little awkward. After thinking for a while he said, we definitely don't have any ready-made ones. We can only build them ourselves. I should be able to build one, but I need to go to Brother Jin Ye's residence to find some materials. Wait for me here. Since this is the news that everyone found out, let's go together. Haha. The 3 of us also have the same idea. Ho Lai, Zhu Yunxia, and Geng Chen said in unison. Alright. Wait for me here. I'll be back soon. After Night Sorrow finished speaking, he went to the Divine King Jin Ye's residence. When he met him, he mentioned the king grade materials. Alright. Let's go to the treasury together. Jin Ye was very happy that Night Sorrow had come. He brought him directly to the treasury. After finding the relevant materials, Night Sorrow immediately raised the grade of the 8 Dragon Cauldron to king grade. Then, he used it to build a king grade battleship. Once the 3 king grade warships were completed, a terrifying lightning tribulation was immediately summoned. However, to the current Night Sorrow, The thunder tribulation of a king-grade divine artifact was no threat at all. He took the 3 battleships and passed through the thunder tribulation together. Creating 3 identical warships was a precautionary measure. When he returned to the domain chief's manor, Hou Lai, Zhu Yunxia, and Geng Chen were all waiting for him. Standing with them was Yun Tianyi. At this time, although Yun Tianyi was a lower divine lord, his aura was extremely powerful. The bloodline in his body had been more or less opened. In a few days, he would catch up to or even surpass his ancestor. Wait for me for a while. I'll say goodbye to my family and then we'll set off. Knight Sorrow knew that the 4 of them were filled with fighting spirit, so he didn't say anything. After returning to the house and saying goodbye to his wives, he went to the Horn People and brought Cow Linger over. Cow Linger's 2 horns were outstanding existences in the entire Horn People. It was extremely helpful for treasure hunting and the like. After gathering, Knight Sorrow temporarily put Cow Linger away in the vast heaven pagoda. He brought the other 4 people and flew towards the Soundless Sea according to the location marked on the map. Rushing to the edge of the Soundless Sea, Knight Sorrow brought everyone to a nearby city and came to a restaurant. Sitting in a private room on the 2nd floor, he handed over 20 divine crystals to the waiter and opened his mouth to ask, "Little brother, do you know about the void beast in the Soundless Sea?" The matter blew up so big. I definitely know about it. But it's impossible to know about it. After all, with this lowly one's strength, I don't have the ability to investigate to the bottom. The waiter nodded and bowed. Tell me what you know. Hou Lai, who drank a mouthful of tea, opened his mouth and said. His voice was relatively loud, scaring the waiter until he trembled. Following that he said, I heard that the void beast is in the depths of the Soundless Sea. It specializes in hunting high deity realm and divine lord realm cultivators for food. I heard that it has already eaten 5 to 6 divine lords and several hundred high deities. Eating so many people, there are still people going? Zhu Yunxia heard that so many people had already died and asked somewhat uncomfortably. Sigh. People die in love, birds die in pursuit of food. Don't all of you have the same thoughts? Otherwise, what's the point of asking about this, right? The waiter nodded and bowed as he said. Seeing that Hou Lai had the intention to get angry, he immediately opened his mouth and said, It's not that this lowly one is speaking inauspiciously. This lowly one is saying this because I received money from several lords. Otherwise, I wouldn't speak out to warn. No matter. You continue. At this time, Geng Chen pressed Hou Lai and said. Hearing this, the waiter nodded his head and continued. If dear guests truly wish to go and investigate to the bottom of things, go to Taoist Temple. This lowly one suggests that you all go to Chrysanthemum Dao right and meet Taoist No Hair. I heard that he entered the Soundless Sea and retreated unscathed. Chrysanthemum Dao right? Taoist No Hair? What kind of name is that? Zhu Yunxia felt a chill run down her spine. Taoist No Hair, also known as the Hairless Divine Lord, is ranked 79th on the Divine Lord list. Chrysanthemum Dao right is his territory. The waiter explained and continued. However, I heard that his temper has been a little strange recently. If you all go and meet him, you must be careful. All right. We understand. Go and prepare the food and wine. At this time, Knight Sorrow opened his mouth to send the waiter away and said, Do you all think that there's a need to meet Taoist No Hair? I feel that there's a need to meet him. If he really entered the Soundless Sea, he must have some understanding of the environment there. Zhu Yunxia said seriously. Yun Tianyi also said, I also feel that there's a need to meet him. After all, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. All right. Then let's meet him. Knight Sorrow said decisively. After finishing their meal, they asked the waiter about the Chrysanthemum Dao Right's location and rushed over. After arriving at the Chrysanthemum Dao Right, Knight Sorrow and the rest found that it was simply a sea of people. At the entrance of the Dao Right, there were Feather God Realm cultivators selling tickets, saying that Taoist No Hair was going to open an on-site training for the cultivators heading to the Soundless Sea. I'll buy the tickets and see what he has to say. Yun Tianyi said and went to line up, spending 500 divine crystals to buy 5 tickets. The group entered the Chrysanthemum Dao Right and waited for about 2 hours. The Taoist No Hair, ranked 79th on the Divine Lord list, wore a yellow Taoist robe and appeared in front of everyone. Cough cough. Even if you don't say it, this poor Taoist knows why you're here. It's for that evil creature in the soundless sea. After the Taoist no-hair appeared, he immediately brought up the main topic. That void beast. It's extremely terrifying and has the ability to cut through the void. If you use your movement technique in front of it, it's very likely that you'll be cut into pieces when you pass through the void. At that time, this divine lord faced such a huge monster with the determination to die. Determination to die, and then? Chapter 2746. Then, Sir Divine Lord will speak if you have to pay an opening fee. Taoist Wu Mao did not speak anymore. A boy who looked to be in his teens walked to his side and said, "Didn't you collect an entrance fee?" Hearing the boy's words, the thousands of cultivators present immediately rebuked him. There were close to 10,000 cultivators present, and the dojo had already collected hundreds of thousands of deity crystals. Now that he had opened his mouth and continued to extort deity crystals, many people were furious. This is Sir Divine Lord's rule. Sir will suffer a backlash if he divulges heaven's secrets. Look at him, his hair and eyebrows are all gone. The boy explained. Ho Lai and Yun Tianyi were very unhappy and wanted to go up on stage. At this moment, Night Sorrow stopped them and threw a space sachet to Grand Supreme, saying, "The deity crystals here are enough for you to speak and explain the matter clearly." Taoist Wu Mao took the space sachet and used his divine soul to sense it. His eyes immediately lit up. He transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow. "Brother, how about I tell you in private?" "No need. Just say it." Night Sorrow did not transmit his voice and spoke directly. "Brother, you're a righteous man." "That's right. You hairless old Taoist, you should learn from him." Some people present immediately reprimanded him. Taoist Wu Mao, who was not moved at all, continued, "At that time, I thought I was going to die, but at the crucial moment, I discovered the void beast's fatal weakness. It's afraid of fire. As long as it gets close and uses a fire elemental secret art, I will obtain unexpected results. If the fire elemental secret art is strong enough, I can definitely protect myself in the soundless ocean." "What kind of environment is it in the depths of the soundless ocean?" Night Sorrow frowned slightly. He could sense that Taoist Wu Mao's words were half true and half false. Some of it was true, but most of it was not. This allowed him to confirm one thing. This Taoist Wu Mao, although he looked mysterious and greedy, had indeed been to the soundless ocean. This was a huge gain. The depths of the soundless ocean? When Taoist Wu Mao heard this question, he pondered for a moment and said, "In the depths of the soundless ocean, the surface of the sea is extremely calm. There is no wind or waves. The surface of the water is like a mirror and there is no sound. This is also the origin of the soundless ocean's name." In other words, the depths of the soundless ocean's hearing of the soundless ocean? Taoist Wu Mao nodded and said, "That's right. Therefore, it is very dangerous to travel in the depths of the soundless ocean. But if it is to soundless ocean, be prepared." These words caused Yishang's frown to deepen. He chided, "Speak the truth." As he cultivated the power of virtue, he could sense that Taoist Wu Mao's words were becoming more and more fake. How did you know?" Hearing Yishang's rebuke, Taoist Wu Mao was momentarily dazed, but he quickly recovered and said, "The soundless sea's ability to block sound and divine sense is true." What else do you know? Tell me everything." After all, he was the domain lord. Night Sorrow felt that it was necessary to let the cultivators of the immortal domain know the truth about the soundless ocean. He did not want them to overestimate themselves and continue to throw their lives away. After hearing Taoist Wu Mao's words, he could tell that the soundless ocean was extremely dangerous. At the very least, it was not a place that ordinary godlords could enter. Even those on the godlord list might not be able to escape unscathed. At this moment, Taoist Wu Mao said, "The most important thing to do in the soundless ocean is to prepare an extremely sturdy ship. Otherwise, if the ship is destroyed by the beasts, we can only swim in the ocean because there is no way to fly." "What grade of ship do we need?" someone asked. "If possible, it would be best if it is made of Dominator-grade materials. Because even King-grade ships can be destroyed." Taoist Wu Mao glanced at Night Sorrow and said with a serious expression, "A ship that requires Dominator-grade materials?" Hearing Taoist Wu Mao's words, Yun Tianyi immediately asked, "Then how did you survive back then?" The main reason this Taoist survived is because I have a very powerful flame. Also, this Taoist has a king-grade weapon that can be used as a ship. It just so happened that when the ship was destroyed by the beasts, it saved this Taoist's life. Taoist Wu Mao explained with some embarrassment. Then he took out his god-grade weapon from his spatial weapon. It was actually a lid. This lid, after flipping it over, could be used as a ship. This is the original lid of the earthen jar? Seeing this lid, Knight Sorrow's heart shook. After killing the divine King Bei Ning, the broken Dominator-grade earthen jar fell into his hands. The earthen jar was too damaged and could not be repaired like Tianyun Bao's. He had placed it in his spatial weapon and was prepared to use it at a critical moment. Now that he saw the lid of the earthen jar, he was a little uneasy. He thought to himself, if the earthen jar and lid are combined and repaired, wouldn't it be another Dominator-grade weapon? This lid is made of a very high-grade material. Yun Tianyi, who saw the lid in front of her and was reminded by her ancestor, immediately realized that the lid in front of her was not simple and praised it. Although this divine lord is not sure what material this lid is made of, it is definitely sturdy. Otherwise, it would not be able to ensure that I leave the soundless ocean safely. Taoist Wu Mao smiled proudly and then said something shocking. However, this Taoist has calculated that this divine lord's fate with this Dominator-grade weapon will end today. Therefore, I am prepared to auction it. Everyone present, if you want to enter the soundless ocean to hunt void beasts or find other opportunities, you might as well auction this Taoist's lid away. What? You are actually taking out such a good item to auction? Hearing Taoist Wu Mao's words, Yun Tianyi, who already knew what grade this item was, immediately shouted in surprise. Regardless of whether it is good or bad, it is fate that obtains it. Since it is fate, there will be meeting and parting. Today, this Taoist's fate with this lid has ended, so I am prepared to give it to one of you present. After Taoist Wu Mao said this, he looked at Knight Sorrow and said, You are righteous and generous, so why don't you bid for this lid of mine? How about it? Hearing this, even Knight Sorrow was a little uncertain about the other party's intentions. He asked in return, What price are you prepared to sell it for? 10 million deity crystals is not too little. Even 100 million deity crystals is not too little, Taoist Wu Mao said with a smile. Yi Shang felt a bit disgusted when he saw the greedy smile on his face. He could feel that this Taoist Wu Mao was not an honest person. It would not be easy for him to obtain the lid in front of him. However, since the other party had asked for a price, Knight Sorrow thought for a moment and said, I will bid half a king-class divine vein. After all, this was the virtuous divine lord. Knight Sorrow did not want to treat him unfairly in terms of price, so he directly offered half a king-class divine vein as the price. Although it was still not as valuable as a portion of a Dominator-grade divine weapon, it was already a shocking price. Chapter 2747. Do you recognize what this is? Taoist Wu Mao immediately sent a voice transmission to Knight Sorrow. He had not expected to get such a bid. I recognize it. It is a part of the sovereign divine weapon. It is a priceless treasure. However, I am offering half a king-class divine vein, which is also valuable. If you think it is not enough, we can discuss it again. Knight Sorrow said. He had attained his Tao through merit and did not want to take advantage of resources. For example, he could bring a few others into the dojo and save a few hundred deity gems. However, he did not do so. This was a kind of boldness. Since you recognize it, I can't sell it to you. Taoist Wu Mao replied and looked at the others who were bidding. After Knight Sorrow opened half a king-class divine vein, they all fell silent. No one could offer such a price. After waiting for a while, Taoist Wu Mao saw that no one else spoke. He said, I said that I only like deity gems and not divine veins. You can continue bidding and see who can offer more deity gems. You don't want the divine vein? How many deity gems do you want? One of the Sir Gods asked immediately. Since it is an auction, you can name any price you want. Taoist Wu Mao smiled. When he looked at Knight Sorrow, a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. Brother Yi, what is going on with him? The value of a divine vein is much higher than deity gems. He doesn't want it and wants to auction deity gems. Yun Tianyi saw the current situation and sent a voice transmission to Knight Sorrow. If I am not wrong, He just wants to cheat deity gems. He has no intention of selling the lid. A king-class divine vein is too valuable. He is afraid that he can't afford it. Therefore, he chose not to buy it. Knight Sorrow replied after thinking for a while. At the same time, he opened the eye of the sea serpent and observed Taoist Wu Mao. He realized that Taoist Wu Mao's appearance was not disguised. Although he looked benevolent at the moment, he was a shifty-eyed person. I understand now. Taoist Wu Mao is not really trying to sell the lid. He just wants to cheat deity gems and then find a chance to escape. My king-class divine vein is too valuable. He won't dare to cheat me. Knight Sorrow said after thinking for a while. Should we expose him or wait until he is about to escape? Ho Lai immediately sent a voice transmission to Yi Shang. Right now, we're just speculating. We don't have any real evidence. We can only wait until he's about to escape and catch him red-handed. Yi Shang said, if I'm not wrong, there must be a long-distance teleportation array here. Then what should we do? Yun Tianyi glanced at Yi Shang. However, he didn't speak directly. He also used voice transmission. As the domain lord, I can't just stand by and watch someone swindle people in the immortal domain. Once Taoist Wu Mao activated the teleportation array, he would be teleported to Knight Sorrow's array. Knight Sorrow paid another 100 deity gems and returned to the Dao Hall. Taoist Wu Mao was still auctioning the extremely valuable ruler divine weapon. Many people were bidding crazily. They felt that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Tianyi, you bid too. Let's see what he is up to. Yi Shang sent a voice transmission to Yun Tianyi. At the moment, none of them were participating in the bidding. All right. I will bid a price that no one can afford. Nominally, I will bid for the lid. Yun Tianyi nodded and immediately joined the bidding. At this moment, the price of the lid had already reached 30 million divine crystals. This was an astronomical figure. Not many people present could afford it. The bidders were probably going to use some items as deity gems. 31 million. Yun Tianyi shouted a number when no one else was bidding. Kid, are you looking for trouble with me? Do you want to die? After Yun Tianyi spoke, a burly man with a scar on his face immediately transmitted his voice to her. He was obviously very strong. He did not seem to be inferior to Taoist Wu Mao. Yun Tianyi was not afraid at all. Everyone has the right to bid for a good item. Who do you think you are? How dare you threaten me? Good. You are very good. When this matter is over, let's find a place to spar. The Divine Lord said angrily. Let's spar then. I'm not afraid of you. Yun Tianyi replied non-committally when she heard the other party's threatening words. Taoist Wu Mao saw that no one was bidding and said, if no one is bidding, I will sell it to the brother who bid 31 million. Humph. I'm not bidding anymore. The cultivator who transmitted his voice to Yun Tianyi snorted and did not continue bidding. The others also fell silent. No one continued to bid. Knight Sorrow was a little surprised. He said, the value of a ruler divine weapon is far more than that. Even if these people could not afford the price, they would not be behaving like this. Look at them. Everyone seems to be very satisfied with this result. That seems to be the case. It seems that the people who bid are quite satisfied with the result in front of them. After hearing Knight Sorrow's voice transmission, Zhu Yunxia immediately observed her surroundings. She realized that none of the people who bid looked regretful. Everyone looked as if they had won the bid. It was very strange. Could it be that Taoist Wu Mao has some kind of method to confuse people? Knight Sorrow speculated. However, he did not feel the influence of the array or the fluctuation of the divine soul. After pondering for a moment, Knight Sorrow transmitted his voice to Yun Tianyi. Since we won the bid, let's ask him to trade. Okay. However, I don't have that many deity crystals on me at the moment. Yun Tianyi said, a little embarrassed. When he bid, he felt no pressure at all. However, he obviously did not have that many deity crystals now. I have about enough. Don't worry and communicate with him. Knight Sorrow instructed. Recently, he had killed many divine kings and ransacked Bei Ning's divine king residence. He had a huge amount of deity crystals on him. I'm relieved to hear that. Brother Yi, don't worry. After the item is traded, I will give it to you. After all, it was bought with your wealth. Yun Tianyi transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow and said seriously. Then, he looked at Taoist Wu Mao on the stage. He said, "Now that no one else is bidding, the item is mine, right?" At this time, Night Sorrow reminded him, "I can feel that he will not hand over the real ruler divine weapon. Be careful." Haha. You are the winner of the bid. Of course, the item is yours. We will exchange the money and the item at the same time. Taoist Wu Mao smiled and handed over the lid in his hand. Chapter 2748. It's so easy to get it. Why does it feel so strange? Yun Tianyi held the lid that Taoist Wu Mao handed over. She felt that it was fake, but she couldn't tell what was wrong. Hence, she handed the lid to Night Sorrow and said, "Brother Yi, why don't you take a look at the authenticity of this lid?" "All right. I'll study it." When Night Sorrow touched the lid, he felt that the aura was exactly the same as the jar in his spatial artifact. He couldn't tell what was wrong with it even with the sea serpent's eye. However, everyone felt that something was wrong. Getting half of a Dominator Divine artifact so easily was like a fantasy. Is it related to the environment here? Look at the others. They all look very satisfied. Could it be that we experienced the same thing as we did? Zhu Yunxia observed her surroundings and found that it was very quiet. There wasn't any noise at all. She felt that this didn't make sense. It's very strange. Night Sorrow calmed down and thought for a moment before saying, "I think I can guess what's going on." "Brother Yi, what's going on? Don't keep us in suspense." Yun Tianyi immediately asked. Night Sorrow looked around and transmitted his voice. "If I'm not wrong, we're in the space of a Dominator Divine artifact. The aura I feel here is naturally the aura of a real Dominator. Presumably, as long as we get out, we'll be able to tell that it's not real. But we're in the space of a Dominator Divine artifact. It should be very difficult to get out, right? Then the array you set up just now, is it also?" Geng Chen didn't finish his sentence because this matter was extremely terrifying. Today, not only would they lose money, but their lives might also be in danger. "Ha ha ha. Thank you for your deity crystals. This poor Taoist is leaving." At this moment, Taoist Wu Mao's voice sounded. Then, everyone was teleported out. After Taoist Wu Mao teleported Yi Shang and the others out, they found themselves in a boundless ocean. Ho Lai Lika shouted, "Quick! Boat! Summon the boat!" "Good. Everyone, get on the boat. Linger, come out as well. We might already be in the silent ocean." Yi Shang opened the sea serpent's eye. He looked around at the storm, lightning, and waves. He immediately took out the king-level halberd he had forged himself. After everyone had boarded the ship, Night Sorrow asked Cao Ling-er, "Ling-er, can you sense anything?" "Ling-er, give it a try." Cao Ling-er replied to Night Sorrow and used the special ability of her horns to sense her surroundings. Not long after, she replied, "There's a slight aura of a Dominator-grade divine artifact nearby. But it's not obvious." "Is this what you sensed?" Zhu Yunxia immediately handed the lid that Yun Tianyi bid for to Cao Ling-er and asked. At this moment, everyone could already sense that the Dominator-grade aura on the lid was very faint and almost undetectable. Cao Ling-er looked at the lid and shook her head. "It's not the aura on it, but it's very similar." "Ling-er, point in the direction for Big Brother Night Sorrow." Night Sorrow said after hearing Cao Ling-er's words. He knew that everyone had been tricked this time. He originally thought that he had the situation under control, but he had been tricked by the hairless Taoist. With the help of the Dominator-grade divine artifact, he had successfully shaken off the distance. At the same time, most of the people who had been thrown out of the Dominator-grade divine artifact by the hairless Taoist took out their prepared boats. "Good. Big Brother Night Sorrow, that aura is coming from the north." "It's getting weaker and weaker," Cao Ling-er said timidly. She could sense that everyone present was in a bad mood. "Ling-er, don't be afraid. They're not targeting you," Night Sorrow said and steered the battleship towards the north. Just like that, they chased for a day and a night. Cao Ling-er suddenly said, "Big Brother Night Sorrow, that aura is getting stronger and stronger. It should be at the bottom of the sea." "At the bottom of the sea?" Night Sorrow opened his sea serpent eye and realized that he couldn't see what the bottom of the sea looked like. He looked at everyone present and asked, "What do you guys think?" Should we go down and check it out? Go down. We have to go down. Otherwise, how can we accept being cheated of so many deity crystals? Yun Tianyi said. He was in a bad mood. What do you guys think? Night Sorrow looked at Ho Lai, Zhu Yunxia, and Geng Chen. I think we should go down and check it out. Otherwise, how can we accept it? Ho Lai and Yun Tianyi had the same idea. Zhu Yunxia and Geng Chen nodded. They couldn't accept being cheated like this. Good. Then we'll take the risk and check it out. Night Sorrow said, just in case, you guys enter the vast heaven pagoda first. I'll control the warship to go down. Actually, he was similarly uncomfortable in his heart. The scam just now was actually very obvious. But even he didn't see through the other party's trick. This made people somewhat depressed. Okay. Let's enter the vast heaven pagoda. Everyone didn't have any objections to Night Sorrow's suggestion, and immediately entered the vast heaven pagoda. Night Sorrow entered the warship's inner cabin and let the warship dive straight into the sea. Just as they started diving, the surroundings immediately fell into pitch-black darkness. Night Sorrow opened his sea serpent eye and looked outside the warship. He could only observe a distance of 1,000 meters. To a divine lord, this was simply a blind state. If they encountered a sneak attack, there was no time to react at all. Big Brother Night Sorrow, after we went down, that sovereign-rank divine artifact aura became even stronger. Cao Ling, who stayed in the cabin with Night Sorrow, said somewhat excitedly. On her horn, ripple-like light constantly emitted, spreading out to the surroundings. Following that, Night Sorrow followed Cao Ling's guidance and rushed toward the location where the sovereign aura was emitting. Boom! It was just that not long after, the warship's hull encountered a violent collision. Night Sorrow released his divine soul power and investigated a bit. He discovered that the one who attacked the warship was a gigantic shark. This shark was shockingly at the divine lord level. But it should not have transformed. It looked like it didn't have any spirituality, but it was extremely dangerous. A divine lord level demonic beast won't cause much harm to the king level warship. Let's continue going down. Night Sorrow, who was pondering whether to leave the warship and launch an attack on the shark, thought about it and gave up this idea. He controlled the warship to continue diving. After passing through a layer of cloud-like mist, Night Sorrow and Cao Ling discovered that the world in front of them had suddenly bid farewell to darkness. The shark demonic beast that had been following them had also disappeared. In its place was an underwater world that seemed like a pure land. There was clear seawater, large patches of coral, and small fish and jellyfish that were constantly swaying their bodies. Chapter 2749. This place is so peaceful. It's really a paradise at the bottom of the sea. Using the sea serpent's eye to observe the surrounding Night Sorrow, he opened his mouth and sighed. He discovered that the scenery before his eyes was all real. Furthermore, he could confirm that this place was not the interior of a sovereign-rank divine artifact. Looking at the fake cover in his hand again, it did not have that kind of realistic aura. However, after observing for a while, Night Sorrow did not discover any traces of the hairless Taoist. Everything at the bottom of the sea was so peaceful and auspicious. One could not see any waves at all. At this time, Night Sorrow looked at Cao Ling and said, Ling, can you still sense anything? Yes. Ling can sense a strong sovereign-rank divine artifact aura, as well as a large number of divine crystals aura. At the same time that Cao Ling responded, she pointed at the location of the coral group and said, Okay. Let's go over and take a look. Cao Ling's talent was very good. When she said such words, Night Sorrow felt that the hairless Taoist should be in the coral group. He immediately controlled the battleship and arrived above the coral group. Looking out from the battleship, he still could not see any clues. But Cao Ling said with certainty, that aura is definitely below the coral group. Since Ling said it's below, then it's definitely below. You enter the vast heaven pagoda. Big Brother Night Sorrow, prepare to leave the battleship and investigate. Night Sorrow said and let Cao Ling enter the vast heaven pagoda. While he put away the battleship, held the Samsara heavenly halberd in hand, and swam towards the location of the coral group. After approaching the coral group, Night Sorrow discovered that these corals were very special. Not only could they block aura, they could also block divine soul perception. At such a close distance, he still could not use divine soul power to investigate below the coral group. Using the sea serpent's eye also could not see through at all. Big brother Night Sorrow, how is it? Did you find it? Ling can't sense any aura in the vast heaven pagoda anymore. Cao Ling in the vast heaven pagoda asked somewhat worriedly. Big brother is fine. I haven't found anything yet, but I'm looking forward to finding something later. While Night Sorrow responded, he began to wander around the huge group of corals, paying close attention to every detail. The entire coral reef covered an area of about 50,000 kilometers. To an ordinary person, it was extremely large, but to a divine lord like Night Sorrow who had powerful movement techniques, it was not considered large at all. Not long after, he had explored half of the corals. At this time, Night Sorrow's eyes were suddenly attracted by a dim light. A terrifying green light suddenly appeared on the originally peaceful seabed. Night Sorrow, who was standing among the corals, saw the dim light flash by and immediately thought of a name. Void Beast. That's right. It was a void beast that had just streaked across the coral without noticing him. To be more precise, it was a divine king-level void beast. A void beast with such strength could only be described as terrifying. This was also the reason why Night Sorrow didn't immediately attack. It would not be easy for him to successfully kill such a powerful void beast with his own strength. Ordinary void beasts had stronger combat strength than cultivators of the same level. Looks like this is indeed the seabed of the Soundless Sea. But why is the void beast so powerful? Seeing the void beast pass by, Night Sorrow did not immediately attack. This was not because he was afraid, but because he was prepared to make a move later. Furthermore, the void beast's range of activity was basically fixed, but if the hairless Taoist escaped, the 30 million divine crystals would be completely wasted. The priorities of these two matters were different. After the void beast left, Night Sorrow continued to search the coral reef and finished searching the coral reef that stretched for 50,000 kilometers. He did not find any trace of the hairless Taoist. Night Sorrow immediately used the Samsara halberd to dig into the seabed. He dug for about 10,000 kilometers. He used the sea serpent eye to discover a concealment array. After using some means to break it, he came to a forest with birds flying everywhere. He could also clearly sense the aura of a sovereign-level divine artifact. How is this the seabed? It's a paradise. This is completely a true paradise. Yi Shang immediately sighed in admiration when he saw the scenery of this small world. There was shockingly a king-level divine range here, and there were mountains and rivers. At the location of the mountain peak, a palace was currently being built. The material used to build the palace was shockingly square divine crystals. There must be the divine crystals that we were cheated of inside. This hairless Taoist is really extravagant. In the vast heaven pagoda, seeing the palace that was being built, Yun Tianyi immediately transmitted. Extravagant or not, it doesn't matter. But swindling people in my immortal divine realm, this matter must be dealt with. After Night Sorrow finished replying to Yun Tianyi, he looked in a direction and said, Since you discovered that I'm here, Taoist priest, please show yourself. He could determine that he was already discovered by the hairless Taoist. I knew long ago that you were not simple, but I didn't expect that you could actually track me here. This poor Taoist really underestimated you. The hairless Taoist walked out of a Taoist temple at the foot of the mountain and looked in Night Sorrow's direction. He snorted coldly and said, If this poor Taoist had known, this poor Taoist would have trapped you in the space of the Dominator artifact. You think too much. You can't trap me with just half a Dominator artifact in your hands. After replying confidently, Night Sorrow used his divine sense to scan the hairless Taoist and the others in the small world. Other than the hairless Taoist, there were 3 other Sir Gods. They were all beautiful women, but their strength wasn't strong. He guessed that these 3 women were the hairless Taoist's wives. You are very confident. If I'm not wrong, you must be the Dominator of the immortal divine realm, Night Sorrow? The hairless Taoist said as he sized up Night Sorrow. Naturally, he had heard of the commotion in the immortal divine realm, but he had never seen Night Sorrow in person. That's me. You swindled me in my divine realm. How do you think this matter should be resolved? Night Sorrow looked at the hairless Taoist. How? At most, I'll return the deity crystals that I swindled from you. The hairless Taoist said nonchalantly. It was obvious that he wasn't afraid of Night Sorrow. Or rather, he didn't think much of him. If you keep up this attitude, today's matter is going to get serious. Night Sorrow's body emitted a strong fighting spirit. He was ready to attack. Haha. In the immortal divine realm, you are the dominator. But in this poor dominator artifact, you are nothing. Haven't you noticed that you've already entered my artifact? Taoist Wu Mao said with a grin. So what if I'm in your dominator artifact? Night Sorrow replied nonchalantly. He was sure that he had entered the world of the dominator artifact, but he didn't show any fear. Now that you have entered this poor dominator artifact, regardless of whether you are the dominator artifact or not, you have to submit to me. Chapter 2750. Originally, Night Sorrow did not think much of Taoist Wu Mao. At most, he was just a liar. However, when he laughed, he gave off an evil vibe. That smile seemed to come from the depths of hell. It was not something a human could have. However, Night Sorrow could not see anything when he used the sea serpent eye to observe. This was because he was in the internal space of the Dominator deity weapon and his senses were blocked. This was the special ability of the Dominator deity weapon. Even he could not resist it. I wonder what will happen if I take out the main body of the clay jar. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow took out the clay jar from his spatial equipment without hesitation. In an instant, the clay jar emitted a gentle light. With the essence of this light, Yi Shang immediately used the sea serpent's eye to see that the hairless Taoist wasn't a Taoist but a clam spirit. Moreover, it was an extremely dark type of abyss black clam. The other three divine lords were the same type. So you are a clam. I thought only dragons liked gold and silver. I did not expect a black clam like you to be the same. After seeing the black clam's true form, Night Sorrow immediately attacked with his Samsara halberd. So you have the other half of the Dominator deity weapon. You have searched high and low for it, only to find it without any effort. Taoist Wu Mao's eyes lit up when he realized that the clay jar was in Night Sorrow's hands. He shouted, "My beloved concubines, attack. As long as we get the clay jar, we can become the overlords of the Silent Ocean." I did not expect such a good thing to happen today. Hearing Taoist Wu Mao's words, one of the Sir Gods looked at Night Sorrow excitedly. When he realized that he had the strength of a lower Sir God, he immediately said disdainfully, "With only the strength of a lower Sir God, the four of us will be like a lion hunting a rabbit." Hee. Don't underestimate him. After all, he is the dominator of the immortal divine realm, Night Sorrow. He also has a dominator deity weapon. Taoist Wu Mao reminded as he took out a shell-shaped deity weapon to block the Samsara halberd's attack. However, he had underestimated Night Sorrow's attack. The Samsara halberd shattered the shell-shaped deity weapon. What? He is so strong? Husband, are you all right? No Hair Taoist's other wife said in shock when she saw how terrifying Night Sorrow's attack was. She was the same as the previous one. She despised Night Sorrow. I'm fine, but a single strike from him can destroy a Divine Lord-level divine artifact. We must be careful. Taoist Wu Mao said before continuing, "Everyone, take out your trump card and fight with your Emperor-grade artifacts." Yes, husband. The three Sir Gods responded one after another, each taking out a king-grade divine artifact. The hairless Taoist held the cover of the ruler-grade god weapon in his hand. It was obvious that he was taking Night Sorrow seriously. You've accumulated quite a lot. Looks like you've amassed quite a bit of wealth. Night Sorrow mocked when he saw that the four of them each had a king-grade god artifact. Some of them even had a sovereign-grade god artifact. When Taoist Wu Mao heard this, he smiled coldly and said, "Have you thought of retreating after seeing our abundant accumulation? I'm telling you it's too late. Today, you will die here, and I will completely repair the ruler-grade god weapon and merge the two into one." How dare an evil creature like you call yourself a Taoist? Don't insult the word Taoist. Night Sorrow complained. He immediately activated the Treastrimsa battle secret technique and shot the forbidden reincarnation spear at one of the female cultivators. This was no longer his strongest spear technique, but he felt that it was enough to deal with the female cultivator in front of him. Kill! 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 Faced with Night Sorrow's attack, the beautiful female cultivator immediately turned into a dark figure. Her pitch-black appearance made one's heart palpitate. She slashed at the heavenly reincarnation halberd. The king-grade god sword in her hand seemed to have grown eyes. It split into 9 sword lights and surrounded the light from the heavenly reincarnation halberd. What's the use of just binding the spear light? The essence of this move is the power of lightning and the power of the attack. Knight Sorrow sneered when the spear light was bound. He activated the power of lightning in this move. The lightning, which was mixed with the power of merit, struck the female cultivator. The female cultivator screamed and was sent flying by the power of merit. The black on the surface of her body was gradually purified and turned white. Knight Sorrow looked coldly at the hairless Taoist. So she wasn't a dark creature, but her soul was corrupted by you. Yes, so what? The hairless Taoist smiled maliciously. The Dark Abyss invasion of the Immortal Dominion has just begun. No matter who it is, anyone who tries to invade the Immortal Dominion will be attacked crazily. Today, you will die without a doubt. Knight Sorrow was shocked to hear the hairless Taoist's words. So there was such a force waiting to invade the Immortal Dominion. He had thought that only the Divine King, who was under the ruler, could cause an impact to the Immortal Dominion. Now, it seemed that he had been too optimistic. You think too much. The cultivators of the realm of the gods are too weak to resist the invasion of the Dark Abyss. Our methods are more powerful than you can imagine. The hairless Taoist said confidently. He then used the ruler weapon in his hand to attack. Although the ruler weapon's lid was only half of the weapon, it was almost undamaged. The attack contained a trace of the ruler's power. Since you are so strong, why don't you show me? Knight Sorrow knew that he couldn't use the Samsara halberd to block this attack. He immediately activated the jar and used the energy within to resist the lid. With a loud boom, the two of them were almost evenly matched. However, the lid in the hairless Taoist's hand was undamaged. The damaged jar in Knight Sorrow's hand was heavily damaged. The cracks on it were even more severe, as if it would shatter at any moment. Looks like the jar won't last much longer. Knight Sorrow, who was controlling the jar, could clearly feel the weapon in his hand crying out in pain. It seemed to be unwilling to give up, but there was no other way. The damage to the jar was too severe. This wasn't a problem with the lid. When Knight Sorrow had obtained the jar, it was already damaged to this extent. Perhaps it was already damaged when the Divine King, Bei Ning, found it. Obviously, he had suffered a very serious blow in the past. Don't use my weapon again. If it breaks, I will make all the living beings in the Immortal Dominion pay with their blood. Seeing that the jaw was about to be damaged, the hairless Taoist snorted coldly and threatened. You don't know what's good for you. There are less than 7 people in the entire realm of the gods who are strong enough to threaten me. In the face of the hairless Taoist's threat, Yi Shang replied disdainfully. However, he still put away the jar. Chapter 2751. Ha ha ha. Aren't you the one who put away the sovereign artifact anyway? Taoist Wu Mao laughed sinisterly when he saw Knight Sorrow keeping the jar of the ruler artifact. He ordered, set up the formation. The way he saw it, once Knight Sorrow put away the jar, he would definitely fall into the maze again and not be able to tell what was going on. Yes. After Taoist Wu Mao gave the order, his 3 wives immediately responded to him from 3 other directions. Abyss 4 Evils Formation. After receiving a response from his 3 wives, Taoist Hairless immediately set up a new trapping array within the small world of the sovereign artifact. After the formation was activated, it released a thick black gas that enveloped Knight Sorrow. Is this a technique from the Dark Abyss? Knight Sorrow opened his sea serpent eye to see through the thick black gas. However, he couldn't see through the thick fog. Therefore, he released his divine spirit power to sense his surroundings. However, he quickly realized that it was useless. Ha ha ha. Don't waste your time. This formation came from the ruler artifact. How can a monarch god like you break it? Taoist Wu Mao laughed proudly when he saw Knight Sorrow get lost in the formation. His laughter sounded like it came from all directions to Knight Sorrow. It was very blurry and he couldn't figure out where it came from. Taoist Wu Mao's 3 wives also laughed sinisterly. In the thick black gas, they completely reverted to the appearance of abyss creatures. On the other side, the Divine Crystal Palace was still being built. Its height was constantly increasing. Knight Sorrow naturally couldn't sense this. He was in the black fog and didn't panic. However, He hadn't figured out how to break the formation yet. Yun Tianyi, who was in the clear sky pagoda, saw that Night Sorrow was in a predicament and immediately asked anxiously, "Brother Yi, are you okay? I feel that this formation isn't simple. It gives off an extremely sinister feeling. It's definitely not a simple trapping formation." "I have this feeling too. However, I'm not sure what will descend. Let's take it one step at a time. This kind of dark aura might be able to deal with others, but if you want to put me in a difficult situation, it's not very likely." Night Sorrow replied and gathered the virtue in his body, turning it into a virtue dragon that circled around the formation. Devour and evolve the surrounding black gas. After being evolved by the dragon of virtue, some of the black gas around Night Sorrow immediately turned into ordinary gas. Everything within a radius of several hundred feet around him was purified. "I didn't expect you to be not only a domain lord, but also a merit divine lord." Taoist Wu Mao snorted coldly when he saw what was happening. He looked at Night Sorrow with an increasingly cold gaze. After using a large number of deity crystals to summon a three-headed six-armed evil god from the array, he prostrated himself on the ground and said, "Honorable evil king of the abyss, please help me devour this virtuous sovereign before me." "Kill! Kill! Kill! Die! Die! Die!" The summoned evil king opened his mouth and said 6 words, 3 kill and 3 die, giving off an extremely evil and cold feeling. "This thing that was summoned seems to be very strong. Captain, you have to be careful." Although Ho Lai, who was in the clear heaven pagoda, did not release his divine soul to sense the evil king's strength, he still warned him with some trepidation. He felt that even if he was in the clear heaven pagoda, he would immediately be targeted by the evil king when he glanced at it from the corner of his eyes. That kind of gaze made him feel as if there was a blade at his back. "It's fine. It's just something deliberately mystifying. Its original body should be very strong, and it might even be a sovereign. However, this shadow in front of us only has the strength of the divine king at most." With the help of the virtue dragon, Night Sorrow calmly comforted Ho Lai after sensing the evil king's strength. "Night Sorrow, big brother, you have to be careful. This guy in front of us looks very evil. Ling doesn't want you to get hurt." Cao Ling, who was kept in the clear heaven pagoda by Night Sorrow, warned him despite knowing that Night Sorrow was very confident. "Ling, don't worry. They have trump cards, but so does big brother Night Sorrow." Night Sorrow comforted her and said, "Watch me kill the evil king first, then break the formation. Finally, destroy the small world in front of us. I feel that they are definitely plotting something by using divine crystals to build a palace here." After saying that, Night Sorrow swallowed a few recovery pills and activated the Treyastrimsa battle secret technique again, raising his strength to the peak. Then, he used the Samsara halberd to attack with the Heavenly Cloud's reincarnation spear. This move was a new spear technique that Night Sorrow had comprehended. It was not very flashy, but when it was used, it would borrow some of Tian Yun Bao's sovereign strength. Its power was very terrifying. The Samsara halberd did not fly out of Night Sorrow's palm, but it shot out a golden spear light. What a powerful spear technique! The three-headed six-armed evil king who had been summoned had not made any movements. After Night Sorrow made his move, he coldly snorted. Then, a saber, a spear, a sword, a halberd, an axe, and a battle axe appeared on his 6 arms respectively. They shot out dark energy towards Night Sorrow's spear light one after another. After these 6 streams of dark energy were shot out, they quickly gathered together and formed a thick pillar of light. It collided with Night Sorrow's spear light. Boom! After a loud bang, the surrounding void was immediately shattered. At the same time, the dark energy light pillar shot out by the saber, spear, sword, halberd, axe, and battle axe were also shattered. The Heavenly Cloud's reincarnation spear light fiercely bombarded the evil king's body. Bang! The 3-headed, 6-armed divine king was immediately sent flying by this attack. However, his injuries were not very serious. After he got up, he said in a cold voice, "A puny divine monarch's attack actually contained the power of a sovereign. Now I, the evil king, will let you experience what a true sovereign's power is. Long live Lord Evil King." After the evil king said this, Taoist Wu Mao, who was originally prostrating on the ground, was so excited that he continuously kowtowed. Seeing their performance, Night Sorrow said disdainfully, You who can't even be considered a divine soul, are delusional enough to think of using a true sovereign's attack? Stop dreaming. Ha ha ha. Are you dreaming? You will know immediately. The three-headed, six-armed evil king laughed sinisterly. He swallowed all the saber, spear, sword, halberd, axe, and battle-axe in his hands into his stomach with the head in the middle. Not long after, its body grew rapidly until it was as tall as the sky. Using his three heads, he spat out countless fine needles. The rain of needles that filled the sky was bright and flickering. However, they were suffused with a faint black light and looked extremely evil. A true sovereign's power. You, a divine monarch, can't block my attack. Chapter 2752. A true dominator's power? I don't think so. At most, it's only slightly stronger than an ordinary divine king's attack. With the help of the power of virtue, Knight Sorrow could sense the other party's attack. This attack was indeed very strong. Those black needles were indeed not something a divine king artifact could block. Even the Samsara halberd had been stored in the clear sky pagoda by Knight Sorrow. However, Knight Sorrow did not use the Tianyun bow in the face of this attack. Instead, he set up the virtuous dragonlock formation around himself and hid himself in a sealed space. Knight Sorrow had just set up the virtuous dragonlock formation around himself when the evil king shot out all the black needles. These needles were very powerful. Even the virtuous dragonlock formation could not restrain them. However, the black needles that passed through the power of virtue were all purified. As a result, the power of the rain of needles was reduced by 80%. Knight Sorrow, who was in the sealed space, took out the Samsara halberd and successfully blocked them. The power of virtue. This damned power of virtue is the nemesis of my dark abyss. Seeing that Knight Sorrow had used the power of virtue to neutralize the powerful attack of the rain of needles, the evil king angrily berated him. He was ready to attack again. At this moment, Knight Sorrow sneered. Since you've finished attacking, it's my turn. It's just a shadow. Are you done yet? With a cold snort, he took out the Heavenly Cloud Bow and Heavenly Cloud Arrow from his spatial artifact. He knocked the arrow and shot it at Evil King. What? This is a true Dominator artifact. A Divine Lord can actually have a Dominator artifact and use it at will? How is this possible? The summoned Evil King immediately shouted in shock when he saw that Knight Sorrow could use the Dominator artifact Tianyun Bow at will. Lord Evil King, quickly dodge. You can't take the Dominator artifact's power head-on. Taoist Wu Mao, who had only raised his head when he heard the Evil King's shout, was immediately shocked by the scene in front of him. The light emitted by the Heavenly Cloud Arrow, which was infused with the power of merit, dispelled the surrounding darkness. Even the figure of the Dark Abyss Demon King became blurry under the illumination of the golden light. The dark aura of the formation has been dispelled. This Evil King's shadow has no way of dodging it. At this time, the three heads of the Dark Abyss Diablo all glared at Knight Sorrow and said, "Haha, ruler of the immortal domain, you have a complete sovereign artifact and defeated my shadow. But next time, the Dark Abyss army will descend upon this land. At that time, the entire immortal domain will be plunged into chaos. It's right in front of us." Dang. Yi Shang was threatened by the other party's words and immediately became bold. He shot out another arrow and directly shattered the Evil King's body. The Evil King, who had been summoned from the Dark Abyss, was killed instantly. Taoist Wu Mao, who was prostrating on the ground, immediately stood up. He has a complete sovereign artifact. We are no match for him. But he had to stall for time. Let's finish the Devil Summoning Tower. As Taoist Wu Mao spoke, he glanced at the almost completed palace. Yes, husband, we will fight to the death. The three Sir Gods responded and used their secret techniques to raise their aura to the maximum. They charged at Knight Sorrow crazily. You want to self-destruct and injure me? You are too naive. Seeing the three divine lords charging at him recklessly as if they had gone mad, Yi Shan shook his head, took out 3 heavenly cloud arrows, and shot them one after another. The 3 heavenly cloud arrows immediately turned into golden light and sent the 3 Sir Gods flying. They were killed instantly. Deity Realm Cultivator, you deserve to die. Taoist Wu Mao was so angry that he turned into a black clam and attached to the ground. Soon, he merged with the ground and disappeared. What kind of technique is this? Knight Sorrow, who was floating in the air, was stunned. Then, he used the sea serpent's eye to observe the ground. He realized that under Tianyun Bao's interference, the effects of the sovereign artifact cover had been broken. He could see the other party's movements clearly. He immediately retrieved a heavenly cloud arrow and shot it at the ground. However, what surprised him was that the black clam moved very quickly. Even the heavenly cloud arrow could not catch up with it. This is a little troublesome. Knight Sorrow's arrow did not succeed. He immediately shot another arrow. However, it also did not hit Taoist Wu Mao's black clam body. Moreover, the heavenly cloud arrow could not catch up with him at all. This made him feel a little strange. However, when Knight Sorrow was about to attack again, he suddenly looked at the palace that was still under construction. He thought to himself, the battle has already reached this stage. Taoist Wu Mao has no chance of counterattacking. His subordinates are still building the palace. This doesn't make sense. Could it be that they are plotting something? Ha ha ha. You realized something is wrong? Let me tell you, it's too late. The Devil Summoning Pagoda that cost 180 million deity crystals has already been completed. Within 10,000 years, the army of the Dark Abyss will step onto the land of the immortal divine realm and devour everyone. At this moment, Taoist Wu Mao suddenly shouted in agitation. Then, without waiting for Knight Sorrow to react, he continued, "Listen to my command, all of you, blood sacrifice." In an instant, he and the other dark creatures all chose to self-destruct. The black blood dyed the sparkling and translucent palace. The originally sparkling and translucent divine crystal palace was immediately dyed black by the black blood and emitted a deep black light. I didn't expect to encounter such a thing on a simple hunting trip. Yun Tianyi, who had just walked out of the clear sky pagoda, said with a sigh. This is not a bad thing. If we are not prepared, when the army of the Dark Abyss arrives one day, the consequences will be unimaginable. Knight Sorrow said to Yun Tianyi and flew near the blackened palace. He observed and indeed saw a huge teleportation array and a summoning array at the bottom of the pagoda. These two arrays need to be inspected by someone who knows how to dismantle them. After observing the teleportation array and summoning array in front of him, Knight Sorrow did not understand the array patterns and did not act rashly. At this moment, the small world they were in suddenly became unstable and began to shake non-stop. This earthquake-like shaking made Knight Sorrow's heart palpitate. He took out the jar's body and realized that the jar's body was also shaking and looked like it was about to explode. Not good. Taoist Wu Mao has activated the lid and is preparing to make it explode. We need to leave this place immediately. Knight Sorrow, who was holding the jar's body, felt something in his heart. If a Dominator artifact were to self-destruct, the power would be unimaginable. He immediately kept Yun Tianyi and the others back into the clear sky pagoda and used the Tianyun Bao to pierce through the small world and enter the soundless ocean. Taoist Wu Mao actually activated the lid before he died. What's going on? Is he not afraid of destroying the two arrays? Chapter 2753. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earthware. It doesn't matter if Taoist no-hairs methods are powerful or not. Whether the Dark Abyss is powerful or not, we just need to quickly increase our strength. Yun Tianyi said from the clear heaven pagoda. He was rather optimistic. However, at this moment, Knight Sorrow's expression changed. The self-destruction of a Dominator-grade artifact is no small matter. We can't escape like this. Next, I will enter the jar. He felt that if he continued to escape, he would definitely be affected by the explosion of the lid. Thus, he entered the space within the jar. The space within the jar was very simple. It was just a primitive small world. It was different from the complexity of the lid. Not long after Knight Sorrow entered, the jar suffered a huge impact. Even though he was inside the Dominator-grade artifact, he still felt his heart palpitate. About an hour later, the situation outside stabilized. Knight Sorrow left the small world and returned to the soundless ocean. He returned to the location where Taoist No Hair had set up the teleportation array and summoning array. He observed the two arrays. When they saw this, Yi Shang, Yun Tianyi, and the others fell silent. The explosion just now had destroyed almost everything in the surroundings. There was a destructive aura in the surroundings that made one sigh. However, when the two deity crystals were set up, the arrays that should have been very weak stood there unscathed. How can they be so sturdy? Holai didn't continue the conversation. Instead, he raised his hand and struck at the two formations. However, just as his palm wind approached, it was dissolved by the arrays. Seeing the situation in front of him, Night Sorrow said, I'm guessing that the self-destruction of half a Dominator-grade artifact wasn't just to kill us. It was also to strengthen the two arrays in front of us. I'll use Tianyun Bao to try attacking and see the effect. If it really doesn't work, I'll invite Dominator Tianyi over to take a look. After saying that, Night Sorrow activated the Treastrimsa Battle Mystic technique and poured his blood into Tianyun Bao. When Tianyun Bao's state changed, he shot an arrow at the summoning array. However, after a boom, the teleportation array was undamaged. What kind of method is this? Yun Tianyi immediately said in disbelief. Although Night Sorrow didn't completely activate Tianyun Bao, the attack of a Dominator-grade artifact didn't cause any damage to the arrays. This was too incomprehensible. I think it's very likely. Although we can see the two arrays in front of us, they might not be on the same plane. Because they're attacking the arrays, they don't cause any damage. After thinking, Night Sorrow felt that the arrays, and the arrays. And no hair. After observing for a while longer, they still couldn't find anything. Thus, they decided to give up and search for the heavenly void beast. The one he just discovered had the strength of a high god king. It shouldn't be easy to deal with. Yi Shang carefully searched the bottom of the soundless sea. Even if someone ambushed them, they wouldn't be able to sense it, so they returned to the battleship. They steered the battleship and sailed in the dark sea for a while. They didn't encounter any void beasts or other demonic beasts. Zhu Yunxia guessed, I think the explosion of the Dominator-grade artifact might have affected a large area and scared away all the demonic beasts. That's probably the truth. Night Sorrow nodded and steered the battleship to continue stealthily in the silent sea. Although their divine souls and five senses were still blocked, with the protection of the battleship's outer shell, everyone felt a sense of security. However, after traveling for a while, they suddenly saw a huge palace complex and immediately paid attention to it. Big Brother Night Sorrow, can you let me go out and sense it? Cao Ling immediately asked after seeing the palace complex not far away. In any case, there shouldn't be much danger in the battleship. Night Sorrow nodded and let Cao Ling out. He stopped the battleship in the mud at the bottom of the sea and camouflaged it. After being let out, Cao Ling used her two horns to sense and said, Big Brother Night Sorrow. Ling can sense that there should be something good behind the palace complex. Something good? What is it? Night Sorrow looked at Cao Ling and said. Cao Ling shook her head and sensed carefully. Then she said, It seems to be a pile of bones, but it should be very valuable. A pile of bones? Night Sorrow was puzzled. Then, he suddenly became alert and said, Someone is coming from ahead. However, after seeing clearly, he shook his head and said, It's not a cultivator but a void beast. Not just one, but two. There were actually 5 or 6 void beasts in front of them. One of them had an extremely astonishing aura. It should be the strength of the upper-level Divine King. Sensing the powerful aura released by the void beast, Night Sorrow said, In the Soundless Sea, not only is our speed affected, but our divine soul's perception ability has also become very poor. But these void beasts don't seem to be affected much. It seems to be like this. Yun Tianyi, who also came out of the Clear Heaven Pagoda and came to the battleship, nodded. At this time he said doubtfully, But if the void beast's perception is stronger than ours, there's no reason not to sense our existence. This is because when I was refining the battleship, I set up concealment runes on the surface of the battleship. Otherwise, we would have been exposed long ago. Night Sorrow explained and looked at the few void beasts again. He guessed wrong and said, Since there are so many void beasts here, it proves that the palace is very likely the territory of the void beasts. The bones that Linga mentioned are very likely the void beast bones that we are looking for. If we find an opportunity to go in and collect some, we don't need to hunt the void beasts. It saves us a lot of trouble. But there are so many void beasts around. It's not easy to take action. Divine soul power was not of much use. Gongchen looked around with his naked eyes and found that there were not only the void beasts in front of him, but also a few more in the distance. With so many people, there will definitely be more eyes. In any case, the battleship has concealment runes, so it's very safe for you to hide here. I'm going to sneak in alone. Knight Sorrow, who was observing the palace, said. Hearing this, everyone's face changed. Yun Tianyi advised, Brother Yi, it's better not to go. With so many void beasts, the danger is too high. You're completely playing with your life. Although it's risky, it's worth it for the heaven and earth concealment array. Knight Sorrow looked at Yun Tianyi and said, Everyone, don't worry. Before I leave the battleship, I will carefully set up concealment runes on my body, so that the void beasts won't find me so easily. Chapter 2754. I still feel that doing this is no different from barging into a tiger's den. It's not worth taking such a risk for a set of void beast bones. Seeing Knight Sorrow preparing to leave the warship, Yun Tianyi opened his mouth to persuade. In his view, Knight Sorrow's life was much more important than a set of void beast bones. Ho Lai felt that what Yun Tianyi said made a lot of sense. Looking at Knight Sorrow, he said, Captain, what Brother Yun said is right. Just for a set of void beast bones, you're going deep into the void beast territory. If there are too many divine king level void beasts inside, or even void beast kings close to sovereign strength, that's very dangerous. What you all said makes sense. But for the safety of the immortal divine realm, it's fine for me to pay some personal price. Besides, I don't feel that I'll be killed so easily. Knight Sorrow consoled everyone with a few words. Glancing at Cao Ling he said, Everyone, take good care of Ling. It's best to give her some pointers in cultivation. Relax. Yun Tianyi saw that Knight Sorrow had already made up his mind and did not persuade anymore. Regarding Cao Ling's matter, he agreed very readily. But after agreeing, he reacted and asked, Hearing your tone, you're preparing to go for a long time? Because if the time was short, there was no need to explain things like cultivation. Who knows how long I'll be gone for, but I'll try my best to return as soon as possible. After all, there's still a 10-year agreement with Aunt Fei. I don't want to miss the appointment. But when I go over, I'll leave behind the vast heaven pagoda. Letting Ling cultivate inside should be able to cultivate in peace for a while. Knight Sorrow took out the vast heaven pagoda and placed it on the warship, saying, Also, if you encounter danger, you can control the warship and directly leave. No need to specially wait for me. All right then. You must ensure your own safety. Zhu Yunxia and the rest nodded. They were all clear about Knight Sorrow's temper. Before he left, each of them instructed a few words. After leaving the battleship, Knight Sorrow waited for the nearby void beasts to leave before sneaking in the direction that Cao Ling had indicated. He knew that if he followed this direction, he would soon reach the edge of the palace complex. The palaces of the void beast were completely different from those of the royal family in the mortal world. The height of the palaces was almost as high as the sky, and they looked very majestic. When Knight Sorrow entered, he was no different from an inconspicuous mosquito. Knight Sorrow, who had activated the sea serpent's eye to observe, hadn't discovered any array patterns or encountered any void beasts. Combined with the situation of the void beasts just now, he judged that the void beasts should have gathered together. After exploring the palaces for a while, Knight Sorrow realized that he was in a completely uninhabited place. He didn't encounter any void beasts at all. What's going on? This shouldn't be the case. Even if the entire clan leaves, shouldn't the corresponding array be activated? As they continued to approach the void beast bone, Knight Sorrow felt more and more surprised. After all, he had seen several void beasts just now. As he went deeper, he used the sea serpent's eye to discover many array patterns, but the array formations weren't activated. However, what surprised Knight Sorrow even more was yet to come. Even after he passed through the palaces and arrived at the void beast graveyard and saw dozens of void beast skeletons, not a single void beast appeared nearby. This was simply incomprehensible. Forget it. Since I'm here, I'll just take it as it comes. There were no void beasts around at all. He casually walked around the graveyard and chose high-grade void beast skeletons. In the end, he chose a complete high-grade divine king void beast skeleton and stored it in a spatial dharma artifact. Knight Sorrow had never expected to obtain what he wanted so smoothly. When he walked out of the graveyard, he even laughed out loud. His luck was really good. However, at this moment, something strange happened. The graveyard where Night Sorrow was suddenly shook violently. Then, the huge graveyard split open into an endless abyss. What's going on? Everything had been going too smoothly. Now that there was a sudden change, Yishan immediately became alert. At the same time, an extremely gigantic void beast rose from the endless abyss. It was dozens of times larger than the void beast skeleton that he kept. It was a colossal creature that blotted out the sky. However, it was also just a skeleton. Human cultivator. After the gigantic void beast that was already in the form of a skeleton rose, it immediately called out to Night Sorrow. I'm a human cultivator. You are? Night Sorrow replied and asked at the same time. I'm the ancestor of the void beast race. My name is Su Changtian. I once transformed into a human and walked in the divine world. The void beast ancestor, Su Changtian, replied to Night Sorrow and continued. Today, I exhausted the last of my vitality to appear because the void beast race is in great danger. I want to ask for your help. Indeed, I didn't see any of your clansmen when I rushed over. Night Sorrow looked at the void beast ancestor floating in the air and asked, What happened? Sigh. All of this happened because of me. Originally, I grew up in the dark abyss and was called the Void Nightmare Beast there. However, one day, I unexpectedly came to the divine world and immediately fell in love with the soundless ocean, gradually washing away the aura of the dark creatures. To live a life of peace and tranquility. Later, I mated with the Tao Wu of the divine world and gave birth to the current void beast race. At this point, Su Changtian sighed and said, A few days ago, a ruler of the dark abyss sent a voice transmission to the void beasts, asking our race to help build a summoning formation. However, our race refused. However, they used some unknown method to attack the Tao Wu clan. The void beasts that we sent to help have all gone missing one after another. When they reappeared, they were all hung outside the walls of the Tao Wu clan. Our void beast race has all gone to rescue them. You want me to rush to the Tao Wu territory and help save the void beasts? After hearing Su Changtian's words, Night Sorrow asked. He was surprised that the other party was from the dark abyss. What surprised him was that the other party did not choose to help the ruler of the dark abyss. It's like this. I won't let you do it for free. Weren't you looking for the complete void hand bones just now? Su Changtian looked at Night Sorrow and said, If you agree to help, I will give you this skeleton. When I was alive, I was infinitely close to the ruler's strength, much stronger than the one in your hand. All right. I agree. However, why do you think I have the ability to help the void beasts? Night Sorrow asked in confusion. After Su Changtian appeared, he immediately treated him as a life-saving straw. This was something that he did not understand. I can feel that you are very strong, even stronger than the upper-level divine king of my race. In addition, I can sense the aura of a ruler's artifact on you. This can't be wrong. Su Changtian said and continued, I didn't expect you to agree so easily. Night Sorrow did not hesitate and chose to agree immediately because he felt that the Tao Wu clan's incident was very likely caused by the Dark Abyss. He wanted to eliminate all the creatures of the Dark Abyss for the divine world. He said calmly, In fact, dealing with the dark creatures is my responsibility. Chapter 2755. Void Beast Progenitor Su Changtian sized up Night Sorrow and said, If I hadn't died a long time ago, I'm afraid I would have a hard time facing your virtuous flames. You have virtuous merits, so you won't lie. Take my skeleton. I only hope that you can preserve the bloodline of the Void Beast tribe. Su Changtian said and landed on the ground. Night Sorrow looked at him and said, Since you're still conscious, lead the way. We'll go straight to the Tao Wu tribe. After all, saving people is like putting out a fire. Because of his virtuous power, Night Sorrow could feel that Su Changtian's words were not false at all. There's a teleportation formation near my tribe that leads to the Tao Wu tribe. Su Changtian said as he led Night Sorrow to the teleportation formation. Although the Tao Wu tribe is not far from my tribe, the teleportation formation is faster. All right, let's go. Night Sorrow looked at the location of the battleship. There was no movement there. He guessed that Yun Tianyi and the others should be safe, so he was not in a hurry to go back. He stepped onto the teleportation formation with Su Changtian, who had been dead for many years. After a dizzying light, Night Sorrow and Su Changtian appeared together in a hidden cave. At this time, Su Changtian transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow. My body is too big. Put me in your spatial artifact. The remaining trace of my soul will attach itself to your fingertips and guide you. Okay. This time, Night Sorrow did not hold back. He directly put away the skeleton that had completely lost its vitality but was still very strong. After Su Changtian attached himself to the tip of his little finger, Night Sorrow said, There's not a single void beast tribe in the cave. They should have all gone out to fight, right? Should be. I wonder what the Dark Abyss has done this time. Su Changtian sighed. They were already very close to the Tao Wu tribe's territory, but he could not hear any sounds of battle. He was very worried about his descendants. Let's see. Night Sorrow sent him a telepathic message and walked out of the cave along the stone wall. To be safe, he activated the sea serpent's eye immediately. After observing, Night Sorrow immediately discovered that there was a vague concealment array at the entrance of the cave. Concealment array. There might be someone inside. Night Sorrow sent a voice transmission to Su Changtian. Then, he cast the virtuous dragon lock formation and locked the concealment formation in the sealed space. Then, he would enter and destroy the concealment formation. Dang! The moment the formation was broken, a high divine lord immediately rushed out from inside. He had the appearance of a human cultivator, but he was clearly under the control of a dark creature. His body was emitting a thick black aura. Everyone has the right to kill dark creatures. Night Sorrow sneered at his opponent who had stabbed him with his sword and was emitting a dark aura. He took out his heavenly Samsara halberd and attacked. The King-grade divine artifact, the reincarnation heavenly halberd, clashed with the divine lord-grade divine artifact, and the result was obvious. The humanoid body controlled by the dark creature was immediately smashed into the wall. At this moment, the dark creature completely left the body and attached itself to Night Sorrow, wanting to take control of his body. You don't know what's good for you. Night Sorrow did not use the power of his astral body to resist. Instead, he used the power of virtue in his body to destroy the dark creature. However, it only had the strength of a divine lord. To the current Night Sorrow, absorbing its power of virtue would not increase his strength by much. You attacked so quickly, you shouldn't have been exposed, right? Su Changtian said with relief when he saw Night Sorrow close in on the battle in an instant. I shouldn't have been discovered, but all the void beasts who left here should have been exposed. They should be in bad condition. Night Sorrow said worriedly. Sigh. The creatures of the Dark Abyss are extremely murderous. We have to hurry. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable. Su Changtian's voice was trembling. He was obviously worried about his descendants. They shouldn't have been killed so quickly. After all, before I entered the cemetery, I saw them. As Night Sorrow comforted him, he did not stop and walked out of the cave. At this moment, he remembered that he still had the concealment runes on him. He immediately activated the runes and walked out of the cave. After walking out of the cave, Night Sorrow found himself in the depths of a mountain range, so high that the peak could not be seen. There was no aura of life nearby. Therefore he asked Su Changtian, Next, where should we go? I'm basically invisible now. I can go almost anywhere. Then let's fly directly into the void and observe the surrounding terrain. I haven't been here for many years. But if I remember correctly, the territory of the Tao Wu clan is directly north, Su Changtian replied. I originally thought that we would be teleported directly into the territory of the Tao Wu clan. Night Sorrow said as he flew into the void and looked down through the clouds. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, he did not use his astral body. When he looked into the distance, Night Sorrow's expression immediately changed. On the city wall of the Tao Wu clan, the void beasts that had taken human form had all been beheaded. The Tao Wus that appeared near the city wall were all controlled by the dark creatures, just like the one in the concealment formation. Some of their eyes were pure black, while others were dark red. Every one of their eyes looked very ferocious. Those that didn't take human form looked like lions that had gone berserk. Bastard! These dark creatures really had the nature of extinction. It's a pity that I, Su Changtian, am completely dead. Otherwise, I would definitely kill my way to the dark abyss and take revenge. Su Changtian looked at the scene in front of him and said fiercely. He had used 2,000 reincarnations to remove all the dark aura of his descendants, but the dark creatures only took a few days to almost wipe out the tribe he had built. This kind of despair made Su Changtian feel very uncomfortable. If what you said just now was true, I have a way to bring you back to life. Knight Sorrow immediately said when he heard Su Changtian's words. At this time, Su Changtian's astral body was still in the third zone. He had the secret technique of the Trayastrimsa astral body. If he imparted it, Su Changtian's astral body could completely recover after a long period of cultivation. At that time, as long as he consumed the heavenly 1000 transformation pill like Mo Yuqian and the others, he would be able to recover. Impossible. I'm completely dead. How could I still be alive? Su Changtian did not believe Knight Sorrow's words at all. After all, he had lost his Dantian and Spirit Sea. You said it yourself, I'm the virtuous divine lord. If I don't lie, why would I lie to you? Knight Sorrow replied Su Changtian and continued, but to save you there is a prerequisite. Chapter 2756. I need you to swear a heavenly oath. Swear that you will never do anything to harm the immortal dominion or the immortal dominion. In addition, if I need to, I will summon you one day to go to another realm with me. Knight Sorrow said. He was not thinking about himself or the immortal dominion. If he could successfully complete the heaven and earth concealment formation, the safety of the immortal dominion would not be a problem. He was thinking about the eternal supreme world. Su Changtian's strength was only half a step away from the sovereign level. If he was tempered by the eternal supreme world, he could probably become a sovereign and fight alongside him. I have no reason not to agree to your request. Save me, and I will repay you with my life. Su Changtian said confidently. He did not expect that he would have a chance to be reborn with only a sliver of his soul left. How long can this sliver of your soul last? Knight Sorrow asked. If he could not hold on for long, he was ready to teach him the secret art of the 33 heaven star souls. Su Changtian pondered for a moment and said, if I don't fight, I can hold on for another 5 or 6 years. To half-step sovereigns, who had endless lifespans, living for another 5 or 6 years was no different from dying. Hearing this, Knight Sorrow said, after saving the rest of your people, you can give me a good explanation. I will take you with me in the future. All right. Whether I succeed or not, I, Su Changtian, will never forget the kindness I have shown you. In fact, Su Changtian's sliver of soul did not have the ability to save the void beasts. Suddenly meeting Knight Sorrow was the last straw he could grasp. I have already activated the concealment formation on my body. I am almost invisible, but if I meet someone stronger than the Divine King, I will definitely be discovered. Therefore, the battle will come soon. You'd better enter my spatial artifact. It will be safer that way. After saying this to Su Changtian, Knight Sorrow used the dark sky wandering dragon technique and headed toward the Swanee tribe's territory. Although he was protected by the concealment formation, it was almost certain that he would be discovered. However, he was not afraid. After crossing the city wall, he began to search for the survivors of the void beasts or the Swanee tribe. Less than an hour later, Knight Sorrow found them in the territory of the Swanee race. The reason for that was because the people of the Dark Clan had actually set up an enormous summoning formation in the territory of the Swanee clan. During the construction process, the survivors of the Void Beast clan were continuously bled and turned into the adhesive for the construction of the summoning formation. Moreover, some dead Void Beasts were even used as materials due to their special attributes. There was only one high-level God King and 5 Sir Gods left. At that moment, they had all transformed into their human forms and were bound to the pillars beside the summoning circle. There were formations all around and a large number of dark creatures standing guard. The dark creatures present not only controlled some of the Louis clan's members, but also some who were completely dark creatures. Their bodies emitted a strong evil aura, giving people an extremely unrestrained feeling. After a rough scan, Knight Sorrow discovered that there were at least 4 dark divine kings here. Apart from the miserable void beasts, the Swanee tribe was not much better off. Most of their members had been corrupted by the dark creatures. The remaining few had also become materials for the construction of the summoning formation. A half-step divine King Swanee was being cruelly bled. It was obviously a blood sacrifice. After the blood sacrifice of this half-step Divine King Swanee, a half-step Divine King Dark creature was immediately summoned from the center of the summoning formation that had not yet been completed. Very good. As long as there is a blood sacrifice, it can be used. Our thousands of reincarnation cycles of hiding in the divine world were not in vain. It won't be long before the warriors of the Dark Abyss completely descend upon the divine world and devour the weak creatures of the divine world. Seeing the pagoda-shaped summoning formation summon another dark creature, one of the Dark Divine King Swanee laughed sinisterly. His laughter seemed to have come from hell, causing people's hearts to palpitate. Bastard! When I, Su Chongtian, am resurrected, I will definitely slaughter my way into the Dark Abyss. Su Chongtian, who was in Night Sorrow's spatial artifact, was enraged when he saw the dark creatures treating the void beasts and Swanee tribe so cruelly. However, at this moment, he was completely powerless. He could only ask, what should we do next? There are at least 4 Divine King Swanee. I'm afraid you, a lower Divine Lord, can't handle them all. Even if we can't handle them, we have to try our best. If we let them continue, who knows how many dark creatures they will summon. The void beasts and Swanee tribe all had Divine King Swanee. If the dark creatures summoned 2 more Divine Kings, it would be even more difficult to deal with them. Night Sorrow felt that he had to make a prompt decision and take action. It seems like I can only rely on your sovereign artifact and power of virtue. Su Chongtian's emotions were unstable. He was very angry at himself for not being able to contribute. Back then, he had failed to break through to the sovereign realm. Since then, his life force had been constantly weakening. Now, he was even weaker than the Feather God. For me, facing the dark creatures, my combat strength will be much stronger. It's not like there's no chance at all. However, this battle will be very difficult for me if I rely on myself. I have to think of a way to save the Divine King of the Void Beasts and the Divine King of the Swanee tribe. Night Sorrow opened his mouth and said, then moved stealthily toward the Divine King of the Void Beasts. There's the aura of human cultivators. However, when he was still some distance away, one of the Divine King Swanee dark creatures suddenly roared. Although it did not discover Night Sorrow's figure, it smelled the scent of celestial realm cultivators in the air. Alert! Find the human cultivators and control them. This king wants to see what the effect of a blood sacrifice of human cultivators is. If we can also summon dark warriors of the same level, then we can continue to hunt down the cultivators of the celestial realm. Slaughter the city, sacrifice billions of people, and summon an army. Another Divine King Swanee dark creature said cruelly. These dark creatures were not of the same race as the ones in the Soundless Ocean, but their motives were similar, which was to harm the celestial realm. Hearing this, Night Sorrow immediately flew into a rage. How could he watch as these dark creatures wreaked havoc in the celestial realm? However, among the 4 dark Divine Kings, there were 2 upper Divine Kings, 1 middle Divine King, and 1 lower Divine King. If Night Sorrow were to fight them head-on, he would probably be under a lot of pressure. He stood where he was and took out the Tianyun Bow and the Heavenly Cloud Arrow, shooting them at the Divine King of the Void Beasts and the Swanee tribe respectively, preparing to help them break free. The 2 Heavenly Cloud Arrows were wrapped in the power of virtue. When they were shot out, they immediately broke the black gas binding the 2 Divine Kings. However, Night Sorrow had also completely exposed himself. Chapter 2757. A Divine Emperor with the Power of Virtue. He's Night Sorrow, the ruler of the immortal divine realm. Today, we must take him down at all costs. Seeing Night Sorrow suddenly appear and rescue the 2 Divine Kings from the Void Beast race and the Swanee race, the leader of the Dark Abyss, the Divine King of Inferno Fury, immediately roared. These creatures from the Dark Abyss were preparing to wreak havoc in this area, so they naturally paid attention to what was happening around them. They knew that Night Sorrow had become the master of this area. Yes, leader. The other upper Divine King, Inferno Divine King, immediately turned from human to Inferno Demon and attacked Night Sorrow. His entire body was made of flames, and his casual attack was like lava spewing out. Good timing. Have a taste of my flames. Night Sorrow put away the Tianyun Bow, took out the Heavenly Samsara Halberd, and attacked his opponent. The moment the Inferno Demon slaying halberd was used, Scorching flames filled the void and clashed with the Divine King of Inferno Fury. Whoosh! The collision between the two didn't create much noise, but the terrifying flames instantly burned the clouds in the sky red. Some of the Dark Abyss creatures nearby were even burned to death. Leader! He's strong. He's not an ordinary Divine Emperor. Just in case, please help him. The Divine King of Inferno Fury was evil and murderous, but he wasn't confident that he could take down Night Sorrow, so he directly asked the Divine King of Inferno Fury to help him. Even if you don't ask, I'll help him. The Divine King of Inferno Fury was already prepared to help. The moment the Divine King of Inferno Fury finished speaking, he, who had turned into human form, shot toward Night Sorrow like an arrow. An expert who specializes in close combat? Seeing the Divine King of Inferno Fury rushing toward him, Night Sorrow was first stunned, then he laughed and said, "Just in time." After coming to the God Realm, he really hadn't experienced many close combat battles. Now that he was facing a Divine King of the upper Divine King level, he was filled with fighting spirit. You overestimate yourself. You are an outstanding existence among the Divine Lords. But in the eyes of the Divine King, they were nothing but ants. Today, I will tear you to shreds, you worm. When the Divine King of Flame Fury saw that Night Sorrow did not choose to dodge and met him head-on, he immediately revealed a contemptuous smile. In his human form, he looked extremely cold to begin with. Now, he looked even more terrifying. However, facing him, Night Sorrow didn't have any fear. He sneered and said, "Creatures of the Dark Abyss should stay in the Abyss. Anyone who tried to cause trouble in the God Realm, they will all be killed." With a loud shout, Night Sorrow activated the Treastrimsa secret battle technique and completely activated the Blue Phoenix battle armor. He started fighting with the Divine King of Flame Fury. At the side, Divine King Flame's kill was stunned for a moment before he joined the battle as well. He relied on his secret treasures and divine artifacts to pressure Night Sorrow. The Divine King of the Void Beast race, Su Xiaoya, who had been rescued by Night Sorrow, was fighting with another Divine King of the Dark Abyss. The Divine King of the Swanee race was also fighting with another Divine King of the Dark Abyss, just like Su Xiaoya. Although the two of them had escaped the shackles of darkness, they were still very weak. With the strength of a Divine King, they could barely resist the attacks of a Divine King of a Divine King and a Divine King of a Divine King of a Divine King. They didn't have much of an advantage. Looking at the two of them, Night Sorrow knew that they definitely didn't have the strength to help him. Facing the Divine King of Flame Fury and the Divine King of Inferno Fury on his own, he immediately poured his blood into Tianyun Bao. With the support of Night Sorrow's blood, Tianyun Bao was quickly activated. At this moment, Night Sorrow saw that the dark creatures were attacking in large numbers. He immediately used his absolute command ability, causing all the dark creatures below the Divine Monarch realm to be killed by the lightning tribulation. Bastard! What kind of method is this? Before Night Sorrow shot out the Sky Cloud arrow, he actually said that all the high gods and feather gods of the Dark Abyss would die. This reduced the number of dark creatures of the Dark Abyss to less than 1 in 10,000. Seeing this, the Divine King of Flame Fury immediately flew into a rage. This was because it wasn't easy for the dark creatures of the Dark Abyss to successfully come to the Divine World. For example, he was originally at the peak of the Divine King realm, a major character with half a foot in the Sovereign realm. However, after going through untold hardships to come to the Divine World, his strength had dropped to the level of a normal high Divine King. Flame Fury Rampage. Flame Fury, who specialized in progressive attacks, immediately attacked crazily after being enraged. Facing him, Night Sorrow didn't fall into a disadvantage because his body was very strong, not inferior to the Divine King's level. He smiled and said, "Hundreds of thousands died in one go. If I'm not wrong, the evil creatures of the Dark Abyss only have 38 Divine Monarchs and above left." Yes, so what? Go to hell. Seeing that Night Sorrow and the Divine King of Flame Fury were evenly matched, the Divine King of Flame Slaughter once again shot a fire attack at Night Sorrow. This time, the fire attack contained the origin of the Dark Abyss. Even Night Sorrow immediately felt the pressure. What a terrifying fire attack! Night Sorrow immediately became alert when he sensed the fire attack from the Divine King of Flame Slaughter. However, he didn't choose to dodge. Instead, he used the activated Tianyun Bao to block in front of him. Buzz! The moment the fire burned, Tianyun Bao's bowstring vibrated automatically, dispersing the fire that was burning toward Night Sorrow. The golden light that was released shot directly toward the divine king of flame slaughter. How can a puny divine monarch activate a sovereign divine weapon? Fortunately, it doesn't have an artifact spirit. Otherwise we would all die. In the face of Tianyun Bao's golden light, the divine king of flame slaughter didn't dare to take it head-on. He immediately fled into the void. However, the golden light seemed to have a life of its own. It chased after him without any intention of stopping. Be careful of the sovereign divine weapon's attack. I will deal with this Night Sorrow myself. The divine king of flame fury understood that the backlash from the sovereign divine weapon wasn't easy to deal with. He immediately transmitted his voice to the divine king of flame slaughter, telling him to be at ease. Meanwhile, he took out a blood-dripping saber from his spatial artifact. He sneered and said, "This saber has just drunk the blood of the Void Beast clan and the Swanee clan. Now it's your turn, divine monarch of merit, Night Sorrow." "Stop dreaming." Night Sorrow coldly replied to the divine king of flame fury. Then, he held the dim Tianyun Bao in his hand and shot it toward his opponent. Because he had just shot out the yellow light, the originally activated Tianyun Bao fell into a sealed state again. However, the heavenly cloud arrow that Night Sorrow shot out still contained a tremendous amount of power. In the face of Night Sorrow's heavenly cloud arrow, the divine king of flame fury was slightly surprised at first. Then, he slashed at the heavenly cloud arrow with his saber. Boom! The divine king of flame fury's saber slashed at the heavenly cloud arrow and actually repelled it. This surprised Night Sorrow greatly. Chapter 2758. The moment the heavenly cloud arrow was deflected, Night Sorrow discovered that the material of the divine king's saber was actually at the sovereign grade. However, its refining method was extremely crude, so it wasn't at the sovereign grade. "What? Did you discover something special about my saber?" Seeing Night Sorrow's reaction, Yen Nu let out a low, cold snort and swung the saber in his hand again. "I just feel that you creatures of the dark abyss are too weak in refining weapons. I feel pity for the materials in your hands." Yen Nu split the heavenly cloud arrow with one strike, thinking that a divine lord using a sovereign-grade weapon wouldn't be much of a threat to him. Night Sorrow immediately took out 5 heavenly cloud arrows and shot out 5 elemental arrows. The aura of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth all carry the aura of the divine world's origin. The terrifying might came from the horizon. Not good. There's something special about this arrow technique. Facing Tianyun Bao's 5 elemental arrows, the divine king immediately felt that something was wrong. Under such circumstances, he made a prompt decision and took out a jade talisman and threw it in the direction of the heavenly cloud arrow. Buzz! The extremely powerful 5 elemental arrows were instantly neutralized by the jade talisman in front of him. Seeing the situation before him clearly, Yishan immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. The jade talisman just now was made by a sovereign. However, the jade talisman itself couldn't withstand the full power of a sovereign, so the power of the attack was slightly weaker. Heavy losses, but fortunately, he didn't use the jade talisman to attack me. After the jade talisman was used, all 5 heavenly cloud arrows were destroyed. This made Night Sorrow's heart ache. There were only a total of 9 heavenly cloud arrows strengthened by the sovereign stone. After losing 5, it was impossible for him to use 5 elemental arrows again. What should I do? Night Sorrow observed the other 3 divine kings in the dark abyss. He discovered that the yellow light shot by Tianyun Bao was no longer powerful, and the divine king was about to break free. The other 4 divine king were still locked in a stalemate. He thought for a moment, and then he made up his mind and said, "My strength is at a disadvantage, and I can mainly rely on my virtue energy and formidable divine artifacts. The damage to the heavenly cloud arrow is indeed great, but I can still summon it." After pondering for a moment, Night Sorrow summoned the jar of the sovereign artifact from his spatial artifact. Activating his divine essence energy, he blasted it towards the divine king Yen Nu. Although the jar was severely damaged and looked like it could collapse at any moment, after it was blasted out, Yen Nu immediately felt threatened. It said in surprise, "I didn't expect that a mere divine lord like you would be richer than some rulers." You can take out a sovereign artifact as you please. What you can't imagine is yet to come. While the divine king of fire fury was fighting against the earthen jar, Knight Sorrow held the remaining 4 sky cloud arrows in his hand. At the same time, the heavenly Samsara halberd shrunk and turned into an arrow. He shot out another 5-element arrow. Although the heavenly Samsara halberd was not a sky cloud arrow, it was much more powerful on its own. Combined with the other 4 sky cloud arrows, it was no weaker than the previous attack. Facing this attack, the divine king of fire fury immediately widened his eyes. He only had 1 jade talisman in his hand, and it had already been used. Facing the earthen jar and the 5-element arrow, he had no confidence in blocking them. The divine king of fire slaughter had just escaped from the pursuit of Tianyun Bao's light. He immediately took out a black umbrella from his spatial artifact and smashed it towards the earthen jar. The black umbrella emitted rays of black light, suppressing the earthen jar and forming a stalemate. Lord Leader, Fire Slaughter has done his best. The rest is up to you. After binding the earthen jar, the divine king of fire slaughter transmitted his voice to the divine king of fire fury. All right. I'll try my best. You're just a divine lord. The divine king of fire fury only mentioned the divine king and not the dominator divine weapon. Clearly, he was trying to encourage himself. Facing the 5-element arrow, he made up his mind and said coldly, "You underestimate my ability." After saying this, Fire Fury immediately threw out the battle blade in his hand, causing the dominator divine weapon to self-destruct in the void. Boom! After a loud explosion, the void was destroyed beyond recognition. The 5-element arrows shot out by Knight Sorrow were all shot down. Among them, the 4 sky cloud arrows were all destroyed. Although the heavenly Samsara halberd was made of special materials and was not damaged, it was still impacted. Kiki! Without the help of the dominator divine weapon, you are definitely not my match. After self-destructing the divine weapon, the divine king of fire fury revealed a sinister smile. Its murderous intent made people feel terrified. However, Knight Sorrow did not show any fear. He charged forward with the Tianyun Bao in his hand. He directly turned the Tianyun Bao into a close combat weapon. Facing the self-destructing divine king of fire fury, Knight Sorrow had the Tianyun Bao in his hand, so he was not afraid of the other party in close combat. The divine king of fire fury, who was in human form like Knight Sorrow, was at a disadvantage and immediately transformed into its original form. Its original form was very tall, like a dark blue mountain, and there were 9 mouths on its head. After transforming into its original form, the divine king of fire fury immediately used its 9 mouths to spit out flames. These 9 mouths all spat out black flames, but they had different attributes. Su Chongtian, who was hiding in Knight Sorrow's spatial artifact, immediately warned, "Knight Sorrow, be careful. It spits out 9 types of evil flames from the abyss magic pool. It is very corrosive, and if it touches your skin, your flesh will rot." "Don't worry. I will be careful." As Knight Sorrow replied, he noticed that the divine king of fire slaughter was faintly suppressing the clay pot. On the other side, the 4 god kings were still locked in battle. Not a single one of them was able to lend him a helping hand. He made up his mind, and while dodging the 9 types of flames, he poured a large amount of blood into the Tianyun Bao. He even poured his heart's blood into it. He activated the Tianyun Bao again. Bas! After a huge tremor between heaven and earth, the Tianyun Bao was activated again. This time, he did not have a single arrow in his hand, and the heavenly Samsara halberd was also severely damaged. Knight Sorrow suddenly released the power of virtue in his body, turning it into the shape of an arrow, and used the Tianyun Bao to shoot at the divine king of fire fury and the divine king of fire slaughter. Yi Shang roared as the arrow of virtue was shot out. "Damn it! Damn it!" He used the green rock soul-rending roar towards the divine kings of darkness who were watching the battle from afar, but did not dare to make a move. In an instant, Knight Sorrow brought pressure to the divine king of fire fury, the divine king of fire slaughter, and the divine kings of darkness present. "Not good. Lord Leader, I can't stop it." At this time, the divine king of fire slaughter, who was resisting the clay pot, immediately shouted. He realized that he could not stop the arrow of virtue at all. In fact, it was not only him, but Fire Fury also realized that the situation was not simple. Chapter 2759. I can't block it either. The Divine King of Fire Fury also panicked when he saw the arrow of virtue shooting toward him. Although he was very strong, he had used a lot of energy to come to the divine world from the dark abyss. He had less than a tenth of his strength left. He had a high level of comprehension, but he couldn't display his true strength. The Divine King of Fire Fury felt very aggrieved at this moment. The Divine King of Fire Slaughter, who was resisting the clay jar, felt even worse. He couldn't escape at all. He could only watch as the arrow of virtue shot into his body. The arrow of virtue didn't make much noise when it pierced through the Divine King of Fire Slaughter. However, his dark body was immediately purified into a golden color. Fire Slaughter roared, "You want to kill me? I, the Divine King, won't let you have it easy." He then chose to self-detonate. However, his self-detonation had no effect on Night Sorrow. It only bombarded the clay jar. The clay jar was already severely damaged. After being bombarded by the self-detonation of a Divine King, the cracks on it became even more terrifying. It looked like it was about to shatter completely. As for the self-detonation of the Divine King of Fire Slaughter, the final result was that he turned into the power of virtue and was absorbed by Night Sorrow. After absorbing the power of virtue of the Divine King of Fire Slaughter, Night Sorrow felt that the power of virtue in his body was increasing rapidly. However, it was still some distance away from reaching the level of a mid-level Divine Lord. However, Night Sorrow judged that if he could kill all the Dark Divine King of Fire Slaughter and all the other Divine Lords present, there was a high chance that his power of virtue would reach the level of a mid-level Divine Lord. This speed of increase in strength was unprecedented. However, Night Sorrow, who had experienced a great battle, didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. His foundation was also very stable. "Even if I die, I won't let you have it easy. Everyone, heed my command. All Divine Kings and Divine Lords, attack Night Sorrow and end this trip to the Divine Realm with self-destruction." Facing the arrow of virtue, the Divine King of Fire Fury, who had no way of dealing with it, gave his subordinates one last order before he self-destructed. Following that, it chose to self-destruct as well. However, unlike the Divine King of Blazing Slaughter, a portion of the Divine King of Blazing Fury self-destruction was still directed at Night Sorrow, even though the arrow of virtue had consumed most of its energy. So much energy was consumed by the arrow of virtue, but there was still so much power left in the explosion. It seems that it must have been very powerful when it was at its peak. Night Sorrow, who was affected by the Divine King's explosion, immediately used the virtuous Dragon Lock array to seal himself in a sealed space. The Divine King of Flame Fury's self-detonation smashed into the virtuous dragon locking formation and immediately shattered the sealed space. However, the remaining energy was not that terrifying, and Night Sorrow easily withstood it. After withstanding the Divine King of Blazing Fury's final attack, a large amount of virtuous energy immediately surged into his body, causing his virtuous energy to swell and take a step closer to becoming a mid-level Divine Lord. In another change, the two Dark Divine Kings fighting against the Void Beast Divine King and the Bai and Divine King received orders from the Divine King of Blazing Fury and cooperated with the other Divine Lords to charge at Night Sorrow. The ferocity of their self-detonation made one's heart palpitate. However, Night Sorrow chose to use Tianyun Bao to block at the critical moment. With Tianyun Bao's counterforce, the shock waves from the self-detonation did not cause too much of a commotion and dissipated. However, the virtuous energy that these dark creatures had turned into filled Night Sorrow's body and raised his virtuous energy to the level of a mid-level Divine Lord. After stabilizing himself for a while, he felt his entire body relax. "Night Sorrow, you're truly getting stronger the more you fight." Su Chongtian couldn't help but sigh in praise when he discovered that Night Sorrow's virtuous energy had risen from a low-level Divine Lord to a mid-level Divine Lord. "Your strength is rising very quickly. But the prerequisite is that you kill the dark creatures and not be killed." Night Sorrow knew that he was one step closer to becoming a Divine King, and his emotions were somewhat complicated. After replying to Su Chongtian, he looked at the Divine King of the Void Beast race, Su Xiaoya, and the Divine King of the Bai and race, Ma Yingjun. He asked, "How do the two of you feel?" "Many thanks for saving us. I will never forget the favor of saving us." The Void Beast race's Divine King, Su Xiaoya, and the Baiyan race's Divine King, Ma Yingjun, were both taken aback for a moment before cupping their hands and bowing to Night Sorrow. "There's no need for the two of you to be so polite. Killing the dark creatures is the duty of the Divine World's cultivators. Night Sorrow said politely, then regretfully said, "It's a pity that I came too late. Your races have suffered great losses." Benefactor, can you tell us your name and origin? The Void Beast race's divine king, Su Xiaoya, immediately asked after Night Sorrow spoke. After being saved, he naturally wanted to repay the favor. At this time, the Baiyan race's divine king, Ma Yingjun, also spoke. "If not for Benefactor's rescue, my Baiyan race would have been wiped out today. Please tell us your name. In the future, my Baiyan race will repay this favor." "My name is Night Sorrow, the domain lord of the immortal divine realm." Night Sorrow replied. Su Xiaoya and Ma Yingjun exchanged a look when they heard this. The two of them had heard that Hegemon Tianai had gifted this area to the immortal divine realm. They hadn't expected to meet under such circumstances. Su Xiaoya thanks Domain Lord Night Sorrow. "From today onwards, my Baiyan race will be at your disposal." Su Xiaoya didn't think too much about it. He bowed again to Night Sorrow and handed over a jade tablet. In human form, he no longer had the aura of a dark creature. Sensing the pure energy of the Divine King, Night Sorrow nodded and said, "If there's a need, I'll ask." In addition, the creatures of the Dark Abyss have built a teleportation formation and a summoning formation in the Soundless Ocean. I don't know when they'll descend upon us. Is there no way to dismantle those two formations? Su Xiaoya immediately asked when he heard that. It's probably impossible to rely on brute force. I'll contact Hegemon Tianai after this and see if he has a way. Night Sorrow said, then looked at Ma Yingjun, who was about to speak, and said, "The Baiyan race has suffered great losses. There's no need for you to promise Night Sorrow anything. As long as you can focus on developing your race and recover, I'll be very happy." Ma Yingjun promises Domain Lord Night Sorrow that I won't make a move against the immortal divine realm as long as I live. Furthermore, if the immortal divine realm is in danger, I'll lead the Baiyan race to assist with all my strength. Ma Yingjun swore an oath to the heavens. If not for Night Sorrow's appearance today, his entire Baiyan race would have been sacrificed. That would have been the end of his race. The gratitude he felt for Night Sorrow couldn't be described with words. Chapter 2760. Great Ancestor? It's you? You're still alive. That's great, that's great. Su Xiaoya knelt on the ground excitedly when he saw Su Chongtian. Su Chongtian had died a few hundred reincarnations ago, so he did not expect to see him again. I'm dead, but Night Sorrow has a way to bring me back to life. From now on, the Void Beast clan will fight for the immortal dominion. Su Chongtian's tone was firm as he gave the order. Yes. Xiaoya will follow the great ancestor's order. Su Chongtian's aura could not be faked. Su Xiaoya was very sure that he was the real Su Chongtian. He felt a little sad facing the great ancestor. Originally, he was not the only god king in the Void Beast clan. However, the other two god kings had already been sacrificed. Xiaoya, don't despair. When we first arrived in the divine world, the great ancestor was the only great ancestor. Didn't we still develop? In the future, I will disappear for a period of time. When I reappear, I hope to see the Void Beast clan rise again under your leadership. Su Chongtian knew what Su Xiaoya was thinking, so he encouraged him. Su Xiaoya, who was kneeling on the ground, looked determined when he heard that. Xiaoya will not let you down, great ancestor. All right. Take the remaining members of the Void Beast clan and return to the palaces. Take all the resources and follow Night Sorrow to the immortal dominion. Su Chongtian said one last thing before returning to Night Sorrow's spatial artifact. He could not use too much energy, or he would not be able to recover even with the secret technique of the 33 astral souls. Yes. Su Xiaoya replied respectfully. He then looked at Night Sorrow and said, Dominion Night Sorrow, Xiaoya is going to bring the Void Beast clan to the immortal dominion. I hope you will not mind. Haha. Clan leader Xiaoya. Don't say that. The immortal dominion will provide a place for the Void Beast clan to develop again. Night Sorrow promised. He wouldn't bring Su Xiaoya and the others to the Domain Master's Manor because the Domain Master's Manor in the Undying Divine region would remain a mystery. Ma Yingjun was slightly tempted when he saw that Su Xiaoya had chosen to join Night Sorrow. However, he quickly rejected the idea. The Ma Ying-jun tribe was arrogant and unruly. They preferred to develop on their own. After bidding farewell to Ma Ying-jun, Knight Sorrow and Su Xiaoya led the remaining members of the Void Beast race back to their ancestral grounds, the group of palaces. When they approached the group of palaces, Su Xiaoya said, "Actually, this group of palaces wasn't built by my Void Beast clan. That's why many of the formations can't be activated. So that's how it is. I was wondering why there wasn't a single formation here." After hearing Su Xiaoya's explanation, Knight Sorrow's doubts were finally resolved. After finding the vast heaven pagoda and confirming that Yun Tianyi, Cao Linger, and the others were all safe, Knight Sorrow opened his mouth to ask, "Patriarch Howling Moon, do you know who established this cluster of palaces?" "I'm really not sure about that. However, I can bring you into the core area. You can make your own judgment," Su Xiaoya replied. Then, he ordered the remaining members of the Void Beast race to use their spatial artifacts to collect everything they had accumulated and some other things. Meanwhile, he led Knight Sorrow and the others into a secret realm. As soon as they entered the secret realm, Cao Linger's eyes lit up. She said, "There's a very dense aura of treasures here. There seems to be a Dominator-grade artifact below." "What? A Dominator-grade artifact is so worthless?" After hearing Cao Linger's words, Knight Sorrow wasn't the only one who was stunned. Yun Tianyi, Ho Lai, and the others were speechless. Su Xiaoya looked at Cao Linger in surprise and said, "Are you sure about what you said?" "I'm from the Horn tribe. I never lie." Cao Linger glanced at Su Xiaoya and said, "I didn't expect a Dominator-grade artifact to be hidden under the Void Beast race's territory," Su Xiaoya said excitedly. Then he said, "Since the Dominator was the one who discovered this artifact, you should be the one to collect it. Since it was discovered in the Void Beast race's territory, it should belong to you. Clan leader Xiaoya, go ahead and check it out." Knight Sorrow shook his head and gave the opportunity to Su Xiaoya. "That's not good," Su Xiaoya hurriedly refused. "Don't delay it anymore. Go." Knight Sorrow had his own principles. He spoke again and asked Su Xiaoya to go ahead and check it out. Since he couldn't delay it, Su Xiaoya said, "I'll go ahead and check it out. After collecting it, we can discuss how to split it." That's fine too." Knight Sorrow nodded. After receiving a response, Su Xiaoya immediately dived down. He was a little surprised by Knight Sorrow's generosity. After all, no one could refuse a Dominator-grade artifact. However, after diving down, Su Xiaoya soon discovered that he couldn't obtain the Dominator-grade artifact below. This was because it was in an activated state and was controlled by the artifact spirit. It had an owner. It was guarding its owner who was about to awaken. After being warned by the artifact spirit, Su Xiaoya reluctantly returned to the surface and told Knight Sorrow and the others what had happened. A Dominator-grade artifact guarding its owner. It seems like it's at least a Dominator-grade being. It's very likely that he or his race built this place. Knight Sorrow guessed. He felt that if Su Xiaoya's words were correct, then the entire palace might have been built by the being below. Should we continue to investigate? Yun Tianyi, who hadn't spoken for a long time, asked. Then she continued, "I don't think there's a need to investigate the owner of the palace. Since there's someone sleeping below, let's leave immediately." Knight Sorrow said to the others after sensing the existence below with his divine spirit. He didn't sense the aura of a dark creature. "All right. Let's return to the immortal sacred realm. The three of us will prepare to break through to the godly monarch realm when we return," Zhu Yunxia said. After coming out, she, Ho Lai, and Geng Chen had suffered a huge blow. They felt that those below the godly monarch realm were ants that couldn't do anything. "All right. I'll provide everyone with sufficient resources." Knight Sorrow looked at Zhu Yunxia, Ho Lai, and Geng Chen and said, "I understand that you want to break through quickly. However, the biggest taboo in cultivation is to advance rashly. Remember to accumulate resources. Otherwise, the gains won't make up for the losses." "Captain, don't worry. We know what we're doing." Ho Lai smiled. When they were in the divine feather realm, their cultivation level was higher than Knight Sorrow's, but now the tables had turned. Moreover, Knight Sorrow had killed the divine king of the dark abyss with the help of the Dominator-grade artifact and the power of virtue. It was impossible for them not to be envious, but they knew their own limits. It seems like the relationship between the members of the Immortal Dominion is different from other factions. Interesting. That you're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.